Chapter 1300. Patriarch Zhao had given up his 80 lifetimes of cultivation to be liberated from the forsaken land of the gods. The first thing he did was to personally prepare a gift and pay a visit to apologize to the Lu family. He had been incited to begin with, and had believed Patriarch Sheng's words, which was why he had acted unwisely. It wasn't easy for him to put down his pride and personally apologize in front of all the Lu family members and citizens of Lu City. Patriarch Lu wasn't a petty person, and naturally sent Lu Qingru to accept the apology. After delivering the gift and apologizing, Patriarch Zhao stood at the gate of Lu City for a long time and didn't leave. Lu Qingru could roughly guess what Patriarch Zhao was thinking. Lord of the Zhao family, do you want to ask me about that senior on earth? Zhao Ligang abruptly raised his head and bowed. That's right. May I know? Lord of the Zhao family is a Dao god, and should be able to sense that the senior has set up a restriction to block the tracking. Therefore, I'm not very clear about the information regarding that senior. Lu Qingru smiled. But my lord's eldest daughter Lu Qingyi is studying with this senior. If my lord wants to know more about him, it'll depend on your own ability. Thank you for your guidance. Patriarch Zhao bowed again. It had to be said that Patriarch Zhao's train of thought was actually very clear. This time, he was truly clear-headed, and understood that there was always someone better out there. When he was in the forsaken land of the gods, he had already thought things through. Rather than being entangled in bargaining with the forsaken pillar of the gods, it was more important to come out earlier and make friends with that senior on earth. Given that senior's divine powers, if he could form a relationship with him, wouldn't he get whatever he wanted in the future? Compared to that, 80 lifetimes of cultivation really wasn't much. Thus, after leaving the forsaken land of the gods, Patriarch Zhao began to make plans to send his own son to study on earth. Apart from that, he was also thinking about how to make friends with Wang Ling. Although he currently couldn't figure out Wang Ling's name or where he lived, he could still figure out Lu Qingyi's whereabouts. Finding Lu Qingyi first was the first step in the whole plan. In the Zhao family's forbidden area, Zhao Ganglai summoned his eldest son, Zhao Qingxian. Zhao Qingxian was a little chubby, and was actually far weaker than Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi. If one were to describe him in one sentence, he would be the legendary foolish son of a landlord. The head of the Zhao family still had a lot of worries about sending Zhao Qingxian out. However, he thought that if he followed that senior on earth, his disappointing son's interests would also improve. Before he left, the Zhao clan's clan leader gave him many instructions. After you get to earth, first find Lu Qingyi according to the low value I gave you. Remember, you must be polite. Understand? Lu Qingyi? Zhao Qingxian scratched his head. Isn't that the eldest daughter of the Lu family? With that, Zhao Qingxian stretched out his hand. Give it to me. What is it? The head of the Zhao family was puzzled. Betrothal gifts. I've also taken a fancy to the Lu family's eldest daughter for a long time, Zhao Qingxian said confidently. Who told you to go down to the lower realm to place the betrothal gifts? I want you to get clues about that senior on earth from Lu Qingyi, and then think of a way to befriend him. Do you hear me? My father is a Dao god. Why should I befriend someone on earth? Zhao Qingxian was puzzled. In fact, he didn't care about the previous battle with the head of the Zhao family at all. And Zhao Ganglai wasn't going to tell him. If he told his own son that his father had just been crushed to death by that senior on earth, he couldn't bring himself to say that at all. In any case, you must remember what I told you. Be polite. Get close to Lu Qingyi, and then get in touch with that senior on earth. As for how to deal with it, it's up to you. What about the money? Even if you befriend him, you still have to spend money. After you go down to the lower realm, I'll prepare it for you. All right. I'll pack my things and set off right away. Zhao Qingxian nodded, then bowed to Zhao Ganglai. Then I'll take my leave first. Get lost. Zhao Ganglai snorted. For some reason, he felt a little worried. Leaving the family's forbidden area, Zhao Qingxian breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, he had long had thoughts about Lu Qingyi. Coming to Earth personally this time was really a great opportunity. Elsewhere, Battle Sect decided to stop paying attention to the domain of the gods. There were currently 5 Tao gods trapped in the forsaken land of the gods. Although everyone wanted to know what was going to happen next, there were more important things to do at the moment. Guoping had been ordered to come here as Divine Tao Star's diplomatic envoy to discuss a plan to upgrade Earth. Everyone was of one mind when it came to the time. This was because it had to be carried out as soon as possible. Thus, it was directly set for Tuesday, December 1st. The problem was the location. This was a massive attack on Earth by the power of chaos condensed from the spirits of all the planets in the Milky Way. Guoping had given it an easy-to-understand name: Chaos Tribulation Cannon. If Earth could survive this attack, it would be considered a success. But it was obvious that it would be safer to carry it out in a place with few people. It was difficult for Earth cultivators to withstand the pressure of the power of chaos, and even the radiation could harm innocent people. Thus, the location of the primer for the monk's chaos egg became a problem. What about the boundless sea? Grenade-throwing senior immortal asked. There's no one here, but there are a lot of marine creatures at the bottom of the sea. The power of the radiation can reach deep into the sea, and even if we successfully transcend the tribulation, I'm afraid there will be a terrifying scene of corpses floating for thousands of miles. Guoping shook his head. He then turned his gaze to the girl in the Buddha's golden lotus. Miss Lotus-sun, what do you think? To put it bluntly, Earth's upgrade was all because of Lotus Sunday. Guoping very much wanted to hear this Miss Sun's opinion. Can I say it too? Lotus Sun was a little surprised. From the very beginning, the girl had come with a learning attitude, and everyone present had a higher realm than her. Of course. Ling Jinren specially planned this for this, so of course you can express your opinion, said Guoping. Hearing this, Lotus Sun's little face turned red, and she directly turned into a steam girl. How about the dead desert? Finally, she voiced her opinion. She felt that this was a very logical answer. But for some reason no one present said it. As soon as she said it, everyone nodded. Good idea. The dead desert is desolate and uninhabited. Back then, the heavenly E-bomb experiment was also carried out there. Guoping nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. True venerated one. Your Excellency Realm King, let's choose this place. At that moment, the monk stood up and looked at Senior Immortal Diulia and Miss Awan. Everyone else also stood up. As expected of Miss Lotus Sun's idea, this subject agrees. This subject agrees. This subject also agrees. And so, the choice of the location was decided. Everyone voted for it. But the girl somehow felt like she was being played at that moment. The monk couldn't help laughing. He thought that Guoping was a real shrewd person. Actually, everyone present was a cultivator with profound cultivation and a certain level of vision. How could they be so conflicted about choosing a location? So all of this was really just a show. Everyone could see that after this incident was over, Chen Chongqing's expression changed. The girl would probably become one of the core members here. Letting Lotus Sun express her opinion was also a way for the girl to integrate into the environment as quickly as possible, even if she was at the foundation establishment stage. What was there to feel inferior about? Behind you. But there was still Ling Jinren. Chapter 1301. The meeting regarding the Earth's upgrade plan for December 1st ended amidst the cheerful laughter of the members of the Battle Sect. Seniors, fellow Taoists of the Battle Sect, please stay. I will report this matter to my superiors as soon as possible, and make appropriate arrangements. Please rest assured. In front of Battle Sect's mountain gate, Guoping turned around and bowed to everyone. Thank you, Academician Gua. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal returned the salute. Then, everyone watched as Guoping steered a small immortal boat into the distance, transforming into a streak of light. The energy source for this small immortal boat was Wang Ling's hair, which saved energy and reduced emissions, and was super environmentally friendly. After confirming the location, the next step of the monk, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Miss Awan's plan was to set up a primer in the Dead Bone Desert. They had to think of a way to set up a device that would guide the primal Chaos Tribulation Transcendence Cannon to the Chaos Egg. This device had already been created by Monk in World 3909. He drew the blueprints in 3906. Then he used another life to verify whether his idea was feasible or not. In the end, The research and development of the device was completed in World 3909. However, it was slightly more complicated to set it up. Because the devices were all spare parts, he needed manpower. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Miss Awan just so happened to be able to help him. The rest were Fangxing, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, Immortal Zhenyuan and a few juniors from the domain of the gods. They were divided into two groups. One wave was responsible for protecting the battle sect. The other group was in charge of guarding the area around the Undead Bone Desert and drawing it out of the barrier, to ensure that on the day of Earth's upgrade, no one slipped through the net and entered the core area that was about to be hit by the Chaos Tribulation Transcendence Cannon. Before setting up the equipment, the monk gave him a controller. Master, this is the external control device for the Golden Buddha Lotus. The monk smiled and said, This penniless monk noticed that you have been holding the Golden Lotus. You look rather tired. A few minutes later, Death Heavenly Dao used the great sacrificial art to burn the handle to Lotus Sunday. Lotus Sun had obtained the ability to control the Golden Lotus. It was like piloting a small aircraft. It was very interesting. Moreover, the controller also had an invisibility mode, which could make the entire Buddha Golden Lotus disappear into thin air. Senior Golden Lamp is truly a genius. Lotus Sun marveled at the monk's strength. She quickly mastered the controls and piloted the Buddha Lotus to complete all kinds of difficult flying maneuvers. It's so fun. Lotus Sun didn't have this kind of fun often. As the future successor of the group, Lotus Sun was followed almost everywhere by a group of bodyguards. The Huagua Water Curtain group would hand over matters such as setting up the aircraft to specialized personnel. Lotus Sun usually couldn't touch the joystick. When she was tired, she drove the Buddha Golden Lotus to a stop in front of Audiobook. Senior Zhua, can I go somewhere? For safety's sake, junior sister Lotus Sun shouldn't run around on your own. If you want to go somewhere, Senior and Senior Death Heavenly Dao will accompany you. Audiobook replied with a nod. I want to go back to the hospital and see Grandpa, Lotus Sun said. It's only human nature. Audiobook nodded. But Mr. Sun doesn't know about Shifu, so I hope that junior sister Lotus Sun will be careful when she meets him. Don't worry, Senior Zhua. Lotus Sun agreed with a wide smile. At the first military medical hospital, the pitiful old man's son still hadn't given up on his plan to organize an expert consultation to save his granddaughter. Audiobook and the others rushed to the hospital to see old man's son again. Lotus Sun, who was behind Audiobook in the Buddha Golden Lotus, could clearly feel that her grandfather had aged a lot. Even the hair at his temples had turned even paler. Audiobook also saw this scene and was very puzzled, so he asked Lotus Sun in a very low voice in the spiritual space, Junior sister Lotus Sun, I have something to ask, but I don't know if I should ask. Senior, please speak. As far as I know, Mr. Sun should be wearing a wig. Why has the wig also turned white? Grandpa is wearing a bionic black technology wig, which can automatically adjust the color of his hair according to his mood. Lotus Sun answered truthfully. Audiobook was instantly enlightened. It had to be said that old man Sun's current state was indeed a little pitiful. He didn't know that the girl's soul had already been sealed in the Buddha Golden Lotus. Mr. Sun. In the ward, Audiobook stepped forward to comfort old man Sunday. No need to comfort me. It's been hard on you all these days. Old man Sun sighed. It's my granddaughter's good fortune to have a large group of friends like you care about her. Oh, that's right. Why didn't that Master Jin Deng come? I heard that he came to the hospital first and used his magic power to seal my granddaughter's body so that it wouldn't be destroyed. I should be thanking him. This is just a stalling tactic. He's leaving for now because he's still looking for a way to save junior sister Lotus Sunday, Audiobook answered truthfully. He looked at the haggard old man in front of him. He thought of another question that he had always wanted to ask old man Sun in person. It was just that he didn't know if it was the right time to bring it up. So he was still hesitating. Director Zhua, if you have anything to say, just say it. Sun Yuan seemed to have read Audiobook's mind. Now that things had come to this, he already regarded Audiobook as one of his own. I want to ask Mr. Sun, who on earth was that fortune teller who told Miss Sun's fortune back then? It's not that I don't want to say it, it's that I don't remember. Old Man Sun himself also felt that this was very strange. He frowned. This person seems to be in my mind all this time, but also not. Ajwa frowned slightly. Sure enough, everything was as Shifu had described. Earlier, Shifu had used the king's eye to look at the appearance of the fortune teller in Old Man Sun's memory, but it had been dark. That memory had obviously been erased by someone else first. And this culprit was probably another expert hiding on Earth. Furthermore, it was very likely that he was as strong as Golden Lamp. For a moment, the scene fell into a brief silence. Lotus Sun drove the Golden Buddha Lotus to a steady stop behind Old Man Sun. All sorts of feelings welling up in her heart. Just then, the familiar and heavy clanking of chains came from the corridor again. The ancient gold men are here again? Ajwa was alarmed and instantly became extremely vigilant. Senior Death Heavenly Tao, what on earth is going on? Senior Sister Lotus Sun's soul has been sealed in the Golden Buddha Lotus by Master, so they shouldn't be able to locate it anymore. Ajwa was puzzled. Death Heavenly Tao quickly made a judgment. They're not after the soul. Ajwa was puzzled. What do you mean? Death Heavenly Tao frowned. They're after the body. Ajwa was shocked. Isn't Heavenly Tao supposed to have no desires? Why are you still lusting after my junior sister Lotus Sun's body? Chapter 1302. Sun Yiyuan didn't know what on earth was going on. He couldn't see the ancient golden man, nor could he see the hook lock. He just sensed that Ajwa and the young man in overalls seemed unusually nervous. Mr. Sun, an unknown creature has come to steal Miss Sun's body. Ajwa didn't tell Sun Yiyuan about Heavenly Tao, but used the concept of unknown creature to explain. Unknown creature? Sun Yiyuan was stupefied. As expected, his granddaughter's charm was extraordinary. Nowadays, whether they were human or not, they actually lusted after their bodies. This was simply outrageous. Director Zhua, what should I do? He immediately stepped forward to protect Lotus Sun's body. A true immortal body couldn't contend with the ancient golden man, and it would be pointless to charge forward. When the familiar hook lock entered through the door, Death Heavenly Tao almost instinctively took out the death book and clamped it shut. But contrary to his expectations, this time, the death book didn't have the slightest effect. It didn't trigger the instant death mechanism of the death book. What's going on? Ajwa was astonished. There's only one possibility. Death Heavenly Tao frowned. The death book wouldn't fail for no reason. If it didn't have the slightest effect, that could only mean one thing. The ancient golden man outside the door might be of the same bloodline as him. In other words, this might be his ancestor. Although it was a defective product that Tao ancestor Wang had abandoned, it was undoubtedly of the same origin as him. The current Heavenly Tao Golden Man was the final product of countless failed versions of the little golden man that Tao ancestor Wang had created in the unspeakable land. As for why it wanted Lotus Sun's body, Death Heavenly Tao thought of one possibility. The ancient Heavenly Tao had tried to steal Lotus Sun's soul earlier for no other reason than to use her identity as a son of the void to break the seal of the unspeakable land. But now Lotus Sun's soul was already protected by the Buddha Golden Lotus. Since it couldn't obtain the soul, seizing the body was a secondary option. Using a body and a spell to duplicate the soul, to recreate a new Lotus Sun. This was clearly a much more complicated operation. But the other party was after all an ancient Heavenly Tao, and it wouldn't be difficult for it to carry out this plan. Recreate a new me? Hearing Death Heavenly Tao's guess, the girl in the Golden Lotus fell silent. Is there really such a thing after reconstructing the soul? There is, but this operation is very disgusting, isn't it? Death Heavenly Tao said. These primordial gold men are all defective goods. They might not be able to achieve a 100% restoration, which means that if they really create another Miss Sun's soul, her personality might be very different from the original body. Besides, and what? Once the new soul is formed, the old one will disappear. That won't do, Ajwa exclaimed. Of course we can't let that happen. Death Heavenly Tao said. If Lotus Sun's body was snatched away in broad daylight, he was afraid that this was the end of his position as the Heavenly Law emissary. When that time came, it wouldn't be as simple as Jinka holding him by the neck and denouncing him. Lotus Sun was very anxious. Senior, what do we do now? Death Heavenly Tao said. Don't panic. This body had been blessed by a master. Their hooks can reach in, but it might not work. As he spoke, he did his best to block the hook's attack. This time, the ancient gold man had clearly come prepared. Not only had he invited an ancestor, of the same origin as him, but he had also brought quite a number of people with him. The golden hooks pierced through the walls of the intensive care unit. Since the death note was useless, Death Heavenly Tao could only engage in a melee fight. One Ola, one chain to flatten these hooks. Audiobook tried to summon Predict for battle. Since the end of the last war with the Foundation, Wang Ling had already given this advance sword to Audiobook as his personal sword. Right now, it was still undergoing maintenance at Fatty Luo's hardware store. But after all, he had already signed a new contract with Audiobook, so if he wanted to use it, he just had to say, "Sword, come." However, something unexpected happened again. Audiobook stretched out his hand repeatedly. From time to time he would raise his hands above his head, and from time to time he would spread his arms to the left and right like a rock spreading its wings. He thought that his summoning posture was wrong, so he changed the posture of sword come. In the end, nothing happened. Senior Death Heavenly Tao, why can't I summon my sword? Is my posture wrong? Audiobook asked in the spiritual space. Obviously not. This group of ancient gold men had come prepared. I'm afraid that some kind of barrier has already been set up in the hospital to block your summoning signal. Death Heavenly Tao was sweating at his temples. This wave of ancient gold men was coming at him aggressively, and he felt like he couldn't hold on for much longer. Sun Yuan didn't know what on earth Audiobook and that young man in overalls were doing. In his eyes, the two of them were having a battle of wits and courage with the air. It looked a little silly, but he was well aware that something big was definitely happening now. He couldn't see the ancient gold men, but as a true immortal, he could still smell the dangerous scent. Golden Jade Sky-Shocking Rod. Old Man's son took out his ancestral magic weapon, but very quickly he noticed something unusual. For some reason, he felt that something wasn't right with his Golden Jade Sky-Shocking Rod. When he touched it, it felt like it had lost its spirit energy. I never thought they would use such a trick. Death Heavenly Tao was utterly astonished. This was a classic weapon spirit hibernating state. Not only could the barrier set up by this batch of ancient gold men effectively block the summoning signal for magic weapons, it could also cause all the weapon spirits within its range to fall into a deep sleep. This was the legendary weapon spirit hibernating state. In this state, the magic weapon would lose the power of the weapon spirit, and its power would be greatly reduced. It would also enter a vulnerable state. Forcibly using a magic weapon while the weapon spirit was in hibernation could very well destroy the entire weapon. What should we do? Death Heavenly Tao felt that the situation was becoming increasingly dangerous. Not only couldn't Audiobook's sword be summoned, all the magic weapons had lost their effectiveness, and it would be very difficult to break out. He could no longer afford to be distracted by the dozen or so ancient golden men's hooks and shackles. Although he could see these gold men, they clearly weren't strong enough. Even activating 33 small streams of vital energy still wasn't enough. Senior, Shifu has already sensed the situation here. But we can't do anything now. We have to think of a way to lure these gold men out. Audiobook said at that moment. He had heard Wang Ling's telepathic message. This hospital wasn't like the spirit sea in the domain of the gods. It was a densely populated area, and there were a lot of doctors and patients inside. If they directly attacked here, the entire building might directly collapse, so they had to think of a way to break out first. What should we do, Senior? Audiobook was also anxious. If this went on, they would soon be overrun. Some of the ancient gold men had already poked their heads out of the walls, intending to directly rush forward and snatch it. At that moment, the girl in the golden lotus made a shocking decision. Lotus Sun. Senior Death Heavenly Tao. Use my body to fight your way out. Death Heavenly Tao. This Lotus Sun. It's fine. It's better than letting them snatch it away. Given the current crisis, they couldn't care less. The girl's suggestion was indeed a good idea. Audiobook strode forward and opened the door of the medical cabin. Sunny Yuan was stupefied. Director Joyeux. The situation is critical. I'll explain to Mr. Sun later. Sorry for the offense, junior sister Lotus Sun. Audiobook used the hardening spell on Lotus Sun's body to stiffen. Right after that, he grabbed the girl's feet and swung them like a great sword at the ancient gold men who were about to break through the walls of the ward and snatch the body. After being strengthened by the monk's illumination spell, the girl's body was so powerful that it left people speechless. The head of Lotus Sun's body collided with the head of the ancient gold man. Boom. The ancient gold man, who was about to break through, was smashed to pieces like a watermelon on the spot. Junior sister Lotus Sun. You're too strong. Audiobook was stunned. As long as it can be of use. Inside the golden lotus, Lotus Sun looked at the abnormally stupid scene in front of her with complicated emotions. Buzz at that moment, powerful spirit power flowed through the girl's body from head to toe. The golden light of Buddha that was added to the girl's body by the light consecration spell shone through the blue and white striped hospital gown for a moment. The ancient gold men stopped what they were doing and fell into a daze. They would never have thought that there would be such a thing. Chance. Death Heavenly Tao roared at that moment. Taking the girl's body from Audiobook, he gripped her foot with one hand and used it as a sword hilt, and officially began his counterattack. In the end, he successfully fought his way out of the hospital. Outside the hospital, the ancient gold men were still relentlessly chasing the girl's body like a horde of zombies out of control, as they poured out of the hospital in an endless stream. Audiobook was amazed by the number of gold men. There were actually over 100 of them. As expected, this was a premeditated operation. Shifu, you can clear the field now. Audiobook shouted at that moment. Outside the hospital, Wang Ling had been waiting for a long time. When he saw these crazy ancient gold men rush out of the hospital, he straightaway aimed his king's eye at the sky. In just an instant, dark clouds shrouded the sky. Like a giant dragon, a giant waterfall instantly descended and exploded on the spot. It swept out in all directions. Over 100 crazy ancient gold men were cleared out in one go. Chapter 1303. November 29th, Sunday. Songhai First Military Medical Hospital. On that day, everyone felt as if they had intermittent amnesia. The lightning of the heavenly punishment thunder summoned by the kings, I also contained the effect of the 50% great amnesia technique. Because of this, those who had witnessed Death Heavenly Tao and Audiobook fight his way out of the hospital with a girl's body in his hand, they had all lost their memories of this period. Of course, the lightning might not reach everyone. There were always people in blind spots, places where the lightning couldn't reach. In this situation, Audiobook and Death Heavenly Tao could only split up again. Physical amnesia was performed on those whose memories had not been erased. Audiobook and Death Heavenly Tao reacted swiftly. The last person to be subjected to the physical amnesia spell was Old Man Sun. When Old Man Sun opened his eyes in a daze, there was an obvious panic on his face. Sneak attack. Someone ambushed me. Old Man Sun exclaimed, but everything in front of him was calm as usual. Lotus Sun's body was still lying quietly in the medical pod. As for him, he was still holding his granddaughter's hand tightly, feeling the warmth from her palm. Mr. Sun, don't panic, everything is normal. Audiobook stood on the side and comforted him. He looked at the red mark on the back of Sun Yuan's neck and tried to remain calm. Senior, aren't you a little too heavy-handed? Audiobook asked in the spiritual space. Death Heavenly Tao. There's nothing I can do. Mr. Sun was the last to be judged, and it's been a long time. I can't guarantee the effects of the physical amnesia technique. So to be on the safe side, I had to hit harder. Audiobook and Lotus Sun. What happened to me just now? Old Man Sun still felt like his memory was a little out of sync. And the key was that his head was hurting. It was as if he had been struck by 1,000,000 tons of explosive force. It's nothing. Mr. Sun was holding junior sister Lotus Sun's hand the whole time just now, and it seems that he's been too stressed out and upset recently, so he accidentally fell asleep. Audiobook said nonsense with a straight face. So I fell asleep. Old Man Sun smiled bitterly. I've made a fool of myself in front of you. What are you saying, Old Man Sun? Audiobook said, excuse me, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Old Man Sun shook his head. It's not particularly uncomfortable. It's just that when I was taking a nap, I seem to have had a very strange dream. Ajwa. A strange dream? Elder Son. I dreamed that my neck felt like it was being run over by a bulldozer. Lotus Sun, Ajwa and Death Heavenly Tao. After the ancient Gold Man's attack on Lotus Sun's body, the Gold Man's body had already been destroyed. Ajwa swiftly got in touch with Battle Sect and discussed with Old Man Sun the issue of transferring the body. As long as it was beneficial to protecting his granddaughter, Old Man Sun would naturally not refuse. What's more, Huagua Water Curtain Group and Battle Sect were already strategic partners. With Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch standing guard over Battle Sect, Lotus Sun's body would definitely be safe there. In addition, Miss Bai Qiao was here. Under such heavy protection, it was impossible for the ancient gold man to attack the Battle Sect. Furthermore, the number of ancient gold men that came from the unspeakable place was already very limited. He had already cleared more than 100 of them with one click. It was impossible for them to gather so many people in such a short time. Of course, regarding the body-snatching incident in the hospital just now, Wang Ling somehow felt that something wasn't right. What is Ling Zhenren thinking? Survival Heavenly Tao leisurely drew the death substitute talisman. Even though Lotus Sun's soul was already protected by the Golden Lotus, he still didn't stop what he was doing. It was better to be safe than sorry. What if the Golden Lotus was accidentally destroyed? Then this death substitute talisman was in fact an insurance policy. It was just that he didn't have to draw it as hastily as he had at the beginning. At that moment, Wang Ling was indeed thinking about the inside of the hospital. They had suddenly appeared. Like the zombies in the movie Train to Busan, those ancient gold men had appeared in a frenzy. He felt that this operation might not be as simple as it seemed. Do you suspect that someone is behind this? Loopy Toad asked as it handed the talisman to Survival Heavenly Tao. It didn't have the ability to read Wang Ling's mind. But in any case, it had lived with Wang Ling for so long. Loopy Toad could guess what this man was thinking with just a tacit understanding. Seeing that Wang Ling didn't deny it, Survival Heavenly Tao was quite surprised. Brother Dog, you're amazing. You can even guess this. You flatter me. Loopy Toad was very modest. In fact, when Survival Heavenly Tao said this, it was actually very sorrowful in its heart. It wasn't easy to be Heavenly Tao these days. Also, worse than a dog, as Loopy Toad said, Wang Ling did indeed have a suspect. But he didn't have any direct evidence. Even if he wanted to denounce the other party, he had to have a good reason to make the other party speechless before taking action. Wang Ling currently had two suspects. The first was the Lord of the Void. The Lord of the Void had always wanted Lotus Sun to become a citizen of the Void and return to it. Furthermore, he had made a bold prophecy earlier. He had said that no matter what the final outcome was, Lotus Sun would return to the world of the Void. Hence, the Lord of the Void had a motive to seize Lotus Sun's body. Furthermore, given the Lord of the Void's ability, while he couldn't completely break the seal on the unspeakable land, it shouldn't be difficult for him to tear a small hole. He could perfectly use the ancient gold men who had escaped to continue looking for the Son of the Void. The second suspect Wang Ling had. That was the fortune teller who had predicted the yin and yang death calamity, hexagram at the beginning. But this person's identity was a mystery. Even Wang Ling hadn't come to a clear conclusion yet. Wang Ling even suspected this person might be Tao ancestor Wang. At that moment, in the world of the Void, the Lord of the Void, who had been sound asleep, sneezed violently. Someone must be talking about the Great Lord behind his back again. By the way, did the Great Lord really tear open the seal on the unspeakable land? The voice of a hollow came from the side. The Lord of the Void sank into a long silence at this question. He was caught in a dilemma. If the answer was no, this seemed to affect His Majesty to a certain extent. After all, the Great Lord of the Void was supposed to be omnipotent. But if the answer was yes, his life might be in danger. The most important thing was that he didn't have the ability to break the seal on the unspeakable land to begin with. The Lord of the Void trembled in fear at Wang Ling's random act of slandering him. So after considering it, in the end, the Lord of the Void chose to live. Of course, it wasn't this king. Some of the hollow spirits couldn't help feeling a little disappointed when they heard this. Some of them were curious, just who was it that broke the seal? It was an accident that no one expected. The Lord of the Void's indifferent reply came from the world of the void. Chapter 1304. With Old Man Sun's permission, Ajwa and Death Heavenly Tao worked together to carry out the plan to transfer Lotus Sun's body. The entire plan was divided into two parts. First, create a fake body and place it in the medical cabin to fool people. Second, move the girl's real body to Battle Sect and hand it over to Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch and Immortal Jinyuan to watch it 24 hours a day. All the surveillance equipment in the ICU would be turned off while the body was being transferred. Ajwa and Death Heavenly Tao didn't have to wait for long before a golden light fell from the sky, and a huge cardboard box was accurately delivered to them. Senior Jua, what's this golden light? The girl was puzzled. This is Lord Ma. It turned out to be a toilet in Shifu's bedroom that was enlightened by Shifu. He's very strong. The Wang family's small villa's courier. Student Wang Ling is really amazing. Lotus Sun was suddenly enlightened. After getting to know Wang Ling better, she had thought that no matter what she saw or heard now, she wouldn't be too surprised. It wasn't until the cardboard box in front of her was opened that she decided to take back what she had said. Inside the cardboard box was a custom-made fake body of the same scale as her. She said it was fake, but it actually didn't look fake at all. The craftsmanship of this fake body could be said to be the work of the gods. The facial expression and complexion seemed real, and even the eyelashes and pores were perfectly restored. Boss Luo's craftsmanship is really getting better and better. Ajwa marveled at Fatty Luo's methods. Who is Boss Luo? He's the owner of a magic weapons shop called Fatty Luo Metal. I can take junior sister Lotus Sun there later. Ajwa said, this fake body is the project that Boss Luo has been working on recently. That was right, Fatty Luo had actually been working on a fake body project. At the very beginning he had been working on this project because of Jinka. As a fanatical fan of Jinka, Fatty Luo had started with the limbs and produced Jinka's fake mechanical arms, which could be used as a pillow at night. Supposedly, they could prevent a stiff neck as well as relax muscles and improve blood circulation. At first glance, this research project sounded a little wretched and perverted. But who would have thought that Fatty Luo's research would ultimately come in handy? As Fatty Luo's emulation skills continued to improve, replicating an entire human body was no problem for him. This craftsmanship is indeed very high. Within the Buddha's golden lotus, Lotus Sun gazed at this simulated body, feeling like she was looking into a mirror. According to Boss Luo, this body was made according to the proportions of junior sister Lotus Sun's body. All the details are exactly the same, so it's no different from a real body, including the hair on every part of the body. All hair? Hearing this, Lotus Sun got goosebumps. Don't misunderstand, junior sister Lotus Sunday Boss Luo's body simulation technology can already be produced with AI intelligence. There are no manual steps during the entire process, and the privacy of the customers is fully protected. Ajwa said. Of course, that might not have been the case 2 months ago. I remember that 2 months ago, Boss Luo was the one who inserted the hairs into the body to restore the details of the hair. So sick. Hearing this, the Sun family's grandfather and grandson couldn't help but twitch their mouths. But to be honest, this method is indeed very powerful. It's almost as if it's real, Death Heavenly Tao said. It wasn't easy to receive Heavenly Tao's praise. Although Fatty Luo's body simulation technology had been developed through countless perverted behaviors, it was still recognized by most people present because it was unparalleled in the world. Even Death Heavenly Tao had praised it, so one could imagine how outstanding this fake body was. The fake body wearing the hospital gown was swapped with the real body. The first task was already a success. Seeing the remote control in Ajwa's hand, Death Heavenly Tao asked curiously, "What's this remote control? Don't all girls like to be beautiful?" Boss Luo specially made a few extra sets of clothes for junior sister Lotus Sun's fake body. In addition to the hospital gown, Fatty Luo had designed 2 other sets of clothes for the disguise. Clothes? What kind of clothes? Lotus-san also asked. The blue and white striped hospital gown replicated on junior sister Lotus-san's fake body is made of a special material, which can in fact be quickly reassembled according to demand. You can easily disguise yourself with a press of the remote control. Audiobook laughed. But Boss Luo gave this design knowledge to me, so I don't actually need it. Then can I see what kind of clothes it is? Lotus-san was very curious. Of course, but does junior sister Lotus-san really want to see it? Audiobook asked. Lotus-san suddenly had a bad feeling. Don't tell me the clothes are all very revealing. Not really. There's one that's revealing and one that's not. Which one does junior sister Lotus-san want to see? Then it's not revealing. Lotus-san was a little embarrassed in front of so many people. Are you sure? Audiobook asked with a smile. Yes, sure. Okay. Audiobook nodded. The more revealing clothes were number 2, which Fatty Luo had designed for her as a swimsuit. As for the not revealing clothes, it was number 3. Audiobook quickly switched to number 3. Buzz. As the girl's body glowed with a multicolored glass light, the hospital gown began to change rapidly. When she saw number 3, the girl's face directly turned red, burning all the way to her ears. She understood everything. But why? Number 3 was a wedding gown. She felt like she had been tricked by Audiobook. Immortal Jinyuan and Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch were waiting in True Venerate Hall in Battlesect to welcome Lotus-san's real body. While they were waiting, they had a brief conversation. I never thought these ancient gold men would be so rampant, said Immortal Jinyuan. They're just grasshoppers at the end of autumn. They won't be jumping around for long. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch smiled. But there's still something I don't understand. Immortal Jinyuan was puzzled. Since these ancient gold men need the power of a son of the void to completely break the seal on the unspeakable, why are they only targeting Miss Sun? I remember that there should be 2 sons of the void. Chin in hand, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch thought carefully. Miss Lotus Sun already exudes the aura of the void, which is the same as those hollow spirits. The ancient gold men are relatively easy to distinguish. As for the second son of the void, although young Master Ling has already locked onto him, he's still hiding very well. Is he hiding on purpose? I think so. There might be an unspeakable conspiracy behind this. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch said. But I think we'll know the answer very soon. Those 3 people from the domain of the gods have already gone to catch him. Chapter 1305. Elsewhere, Gu Xuanji, Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi had been sent on a mission to capture the second son of the void. Because they couldn't confirm his identity at the moment, the 3 of them decided to catch all the suspects for observation. Once these suspects started to give off the scent of a creature of the void, then the identity of the son of the void would be confirmed. According to Book of Sage Immortal, in the end, the suspects focused on Jiang Xiaoqie and Yi Jiyang. One was Old Man Sun's personal secretary. The other was Blade Master Yi Jianchuan's adopted son. Because they didn't know which of the 2 sons of the void was, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's suggestion was, catch them both. Furthermore, they had to be the kind that wouldn't give themselves away. Because no matter which one of them disappeared, it would cause unnecessary trouble. Lord Ma has already connected with them. The fake bodies of Yi Jiyang and Jiang Xiaoqie are ready. After we kidnap them, we'll switch to the fake bodies. Gu Xuanji told Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi about the plan of action. I've already seen those fake bodies, but they're both alive. What's the use of just switching bodies? Wang Zhen asked. These 2 fake bodies are more advanced and can be manipulated. There are professional actors pulling the strings behind the scenes, and it's said that they were carefully selected from the battle sect. Gu Xuanji said. Do you know those virtual live streamers online who use 2D AI to change their faces? Oh, you mean that? Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi were enlightened. They had seen similar live streams before, and even live accidents. This was a technology that could completely replace a real person with a 2D virtual live streamer. You could find someone to draw up the persona you wanted. Then, the real person just needed to perform in the background. During the live stream, all the voices and expressions would be captured by the AI, and then fed back to the virtual live streamer. But when this technology first came out, there were frequent flip-flops. For example, you were watching a cute 2D virtual girl dance in the live stream room with relish. In the end, the live stream room suddenly froze. The real live streamer hiding behind the virtual software would instantly be exposed. It could be an auntie over 50 years old. He could also be a fat otaku with a face full of pimples and a big belly. I never thought that Fatty Luo would actually incorporate this kind of technology into his body simulation technology. Too bad he's a freak. After listening to Gu Xuanji's introduction, Wang Zhen had a look of amazement on his face. Gu Xuanji nodded in agreement. Boss Luo is indeed a rare talent. Unfortunately, he's a freak. It's a pity that he's a freak. Has this sentence become a suffix to describe Boss Luo? Hearing the two men's conversation, Lu Qingyi took the initiative to defend Fatty Luo. Boss Luo is such a good person. He is quick-witted and quick-witted. How can you say that about him? Too bad he's a pervert. Wang Zhen and Gu Xuanji. The first hostage was Yi Jiyang. It was relatively easy to tie Yi Jiyang up. Ever since the 9 Dragons mountain climb competition, Yi Jiyang was still in a state of isolation and had yet to recover. Now he was still lying in the hospital. Every day, he had nothing to do but receive regular counseling from the psychiatrist. Thus, it was very easy for the battle master who was in charge of the connection to act. This sort of expressionless acting wasn't challenging at all. Gu Xuanji and the other two cut the Gordian knot and quickly tied up Yi Jiyang. Then they cooperated with Lord Ma to place the fake Yi Jiyang on the hospital bed. There's one more, Gu Xuanji said. And the last one was the most troublesome one. Unlike Yi Jiyang, Jiang Xiaoqie was a person with the ability to move, and he was very vigilant. He was also followed by a man in black the entire time. Thus, they had to find a time when Jiang Xiaoqie would be alone. Gu Xuanji, Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi disguised themselves as employees of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. They were dressed in staff uniforms and waited for an entire afternoon before they finally found an opportunity for Jiang Xiaoqie to go to the toilet alone. The time has come. I'll leave this to you, Gu Xuanji said to Wang Zhen. Why me? I'm thinking about you, Gu Xuanji said earnestly. Gu Xuanji said earnestly. When all's said and done, we're all working for Ling Zhenren. You have to show off more to win his favor, understand? Ling Zhenren nodded. That's right. Lu Qingyi smiled mischievously. Senior Gu is the commander of this operation. And that place is the men's washroom. You can't possibly want a girl like me to go. This Senior Gu made Gu Xuanji's mood extremely complicated. When Lu Qingyi said this, Wang Zhen rolled his eyes. What's with the fact that you usually break down the door when I go to the washroom? Now you think you're a girl. But in the end, Wang Zhen grit his teeth. Fine, I'll go. Of the 3 people from the domain of the gods, Wang Zhen felt that his status was indeed the lowest. Wang Zhen had even named his online ID this way. Humble Wang Zhen, survival on Earth. These short words fully express Wang Zhen's current living situation. He felt that what Gu Xuanji said actually made sense. Rather than painstakingly cultivating for 1,000 years, it was better to cling to Wang Ling's thigh. If he tried harder to curry favor with Ling Zhenren, his status might really fall further and further. There were several bodyguards in black standing guard outside the men's washroom. Wang Zhen couldn't directly break in through the front door, so he could only find a covert position to flash over the wall. Wang Zhen knew a lot of heavenly Dao spells, but he had learned many of them quickly through cultivation. Thus, most of them were second-rate. For example, he wasn't very stable with this great flash spell. Wang Zhen just hoped that he wouldn't appear in some strange place. Inside the washroom, Jiang Xiaoqie was facing the urinal. He had just unzipped his pants, but before he could take it out, a hand reached out from the urinal and grabbed his hand. Brother, calm down. Don't pee. Wang Zhen sighed. Sure enough, he had still flashed into some strange place. That was right, he had flashed into the urinal. What was worse was that Jiang Xiaoqie was about to take out his water faucet and aim it at Wang Zhen. Wang Zhen made a prompt decision and stretched out his hand to stop Jiang Xiaoqie. Holy shit! Jiang Xiaoqie was frightened on the spot, and his entire body went limp with fear. A person suddenly popping out of the urinal was no different from Sadako crawling out of the TV. But he didn't have time to cry out. Pa! Wang Zhen knocked Jiang Xiaoqi out with a karate chop. Although it wasn't a good start, it was more daunting than dangerous. Wang Zhen wiped at the sweat on his forehead. He was about to wait for Lord Ma to teleport. In the end, he suddenly saw a silver vortex start to gather in front of him. What's this? Wang Zhen was puzzled. This Lord Ma's teleportation had always been a golden beam of light. When had he changed the teleportation special effect? Wang Zhen was astonished. A fat man fell heavily onto the toilet tiles with a plop. The fat man was foaming at the mouth. It looked like he was getting carsick because the speed of the teleportation was too fast. Bro? Bewildered, Wang Zhen walked over. Then he saw the signature chubby face of the newcomer. Damn, isn't that Zhao Qingxian from the Zhao family? Wang Zhen recognized the newcomer at a glance. What was this guy doing on Earth instead of staying in the domain of the gods? A few minutes later, the bodyguards at the door heard strange noises coming from the washroom, and hurriedly broke in. Wang Zhen had already completed his task, and walked out as if nothing had happened. The swap was complete. The one in the washroom now was a fake Jiang Xiaoqi. The real one had already been knocked out, and had been teleported back to the battle sect by Lord Ma. What's going on? You're making so much noise when you're kidnapping someone. Are you okay? Lu Qingyi was startled by the scene in front of her, and her face was full of bewilderment as she didn't know what on earth had happened in the washroom just now. I saw Zhao Qingxian, Wang Zhen said in a low voice. Zhao Qingxian? The one from the Zhao family. Lu Qingyi was shocked. What's he doing on Earth? She recalled the terrifying scene of being chased and intercepted by this young master from the Zhao family in the domain of the gods. Looking at Lu Qingyi's panicked expression, Wang Zhen asked with a smile, Are they here for you? Why me? I can't like him. Even if I do, I can't like him. Like who? Lu Qingyi was silent for a moment, then blushed and hurriedly changed the subject. Then how is he now? I beat him up. Don't worry about it. You actually beat him up. Lu Qingyi instantly smiled. It turned out that the noises in the washroom just now had been the sound of Wang Zhen beating someone up. Who else should I beat if not him? Wang Zhen chuckled. Even if it wasn't for Lu Qingyi, it was for himself. Of the people from the domain of the gods, his status was already the lowest to begin with. If there was also Zhao Qingxian, who liked to flatter Ling Jinren in all kinds of ways, wouldn't his status be reduced by one? Bam a carrot. He absolutely couldn't let that happen. Chapter 1306. Splash. A basin of ice-cold water was poured over Zhao Qingxian. He woke up from his coma and felt an incomparable pain in his skull. The cold water seeped into his wound, and Zhao Qingxian grimaced in pain and cried out in alarm. When Zhao Qingxian came to his senses, he realized that he was handcuffed. In front of him were two police officers responsible for interrogating him. Something didn't seem right. He remembered that he had lost consciousness in the transmission array in the domain of the gods. This might have been motion sickness caused by traveling too fast. But the question was, how had he gotten all these injuries? Since why had he appeared in this police station? Zhao Qingxian couldn't figure it out at all. This is Earth, right? Zhao Qingxian stared at the two police officers in front of him and asked solemnly. The police officers were blank, and one of them stared at Zhao Qingxian speechlessly. Although you were beaten up like an alien, it's no use pretending to be one here, understand? We're now in diplomatic relations with Divine Dao Star, and we have files on all aliens. So tell us the truth about your crime, or you'll suffer. The truth. The corners of Zhao Qingxian's mouth twitched, and he wanted to cry but had no tears. He had just arrived on Earth. How had he become a suspect? You've made a big mistake. The police officer looked at Zhao Qingxian very solemnly. Do you know beating yourself up like an alien and then hiding in a toilet to scare people is very shameful. Very, very shameful. What the hell? Zhao Qingxian was bewildered. You scared Jiang Xiaoqi, the Secretary General of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. So much so that he's now unconscious. The situation is more serious than you think. Zhao Qingxian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Officer, I understand that. But do you think anyone would be so bored as to beat themselves up like a pig's head to scare other people? That's hard to say. Maybe there really is such a bored person. The police officer chuckled. We've already examined the scene, and there's no trace of a third person, which is why we came to this conclusion. Also, we have reason to suspect your sexual orientation. Zhao Qingxian. The police officer. According to the statements provided by the security personnel at the scene, when they found you, your hand was already in Secretary Zhang's crotch. Zhao Qingxian. Therefore, we carried out a basic reconstruction of the scene based on the facts. The police officer twirled the pen in his hand and explained his deduction. First, you've been coveting Secretary Jiang for a long time, so you beat yourself up and hid in the toilet, trying to scare Secretary Jiang. After Secretary Jiang fainted, you planned to do something to him. Secondly, Secretary Jiang was shocked and accidentally collided with your head, causing both of you to fall to the ground at the same time. Then, the security guards rushed into the toilet and happened to see your perverted hand. After that, the police officer was filled with righteous indignation and slammed the table heavily. He thought of the room and incident that happened not long ago, and the anger on his face became even more obvious. These people of the heaven-slaying blade, who couldn't control their desires, should be severely punished by the heavenly Tao. At the same time, he felt sorry for Secretary Jiang, who had yet to recover from the shock. When going out, no matter if it was a girl or a boy, they had to protect themselves. Why did the Secretary General go crazy like that? Battlesec's true venerated Great Hall. After the second kidnapped Jiang Xiaoqie had been sent here by Lord Ma, the entire swap plan had already been carried out smoothly. When Jiang Xiaoqie had been sent here, he had been unconscious, and had been sent here in a very strange position with his butt sticking up in the air. They're very efficient. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch smiled slightly, took a step forward and flipped Jiang Xiaoqie over. Then he noticed that the zipper on Jiang Xiaoqie's pants was wide open, and an unknown liquid was seeping out. This scene forced Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch to quickly withdraw his hand and not touch Jiang Xiaoqie again. As Wang Ling's real clone, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch also had his own distinct personality traits. For example, misophobia. Take the Crispy Noodle Snacks incident for example. Wang Ling didn't mind grabbing the noodles in the bag with his bare hands and getting his fingers covered in seasoning powder. But Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch was different. He had to wear gloves or use a spell to guide the noodles into his mouth. If he directly grabbed it with his hands, he wouldn't be able to accept it at all. Let me do it. Seeing this, Immortal Jin Yuan stepped forward to help Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch out of his predicament. Seeing that Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch was gathering the moisture in the air to wash his hands, he couldn't help laughing. Senior Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's misophobia is a little strong, isn't it? It's not a question of whether it's exaggerated or not. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch shook his head. I feel like I'm not clean after touching him. At the same time, in Battlesec's underground seclusion cellar, seclusion room number 328, Ajua, Death Heavenly Tao and Lotus Sun were under Battlesec's protection here. Battlesec's underground seclusion cellar was designed for all disciples who needed to enter seclusion, and there were 3,000 secret rooms in total. Later, Jiang Xiaoqie and Yi Jiang would also be sent here for protection in an independent secret room. These two people were like ticking time bombs. One of them could awaken and become a son of the void at any time, so the task of monitoring them was indeed a long and arduous one. But with Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch and Immortal Jin Yuan, two great generals of Battlesec, standing guard here, even if they ran into any trouble, they would be able to easily solve it. In secret room number 328, Lotus Sun was slightly startled when she saw the feedback image in the true venerated hall. Senior Ajua, I never thought that Brother Jiang might be a son of the void. Ajua, surprised? No. Lotus Sun shook her head. Actually, I'm more surprised that there's someone in the hall who looks so much like student Wang Ling. You mean Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch? Is this senior called Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch? The girl was blank. I knew it wasn't student Wang Ling. Student Wang Ling would never talk so much in one chapter. Ajua laughed. That's Shifu's real clone, which was split from his main body. You can understand it as Shifu's son, which is little Wang Ling? So of course they look alike. Little Wang Ling. The girl seemed to think of something, and her face turned red. Then what on earth is a real clone? Lotus Sun asked. Ordinary clones usually dissipate immediately after receiving a heavy blow. They don't have spiritual intelligence, and act according to the orders of the main body. But real clones are different. Not only do they have the ability to fight for a long time, they also have self-awareness, Ajwa answered briefly. Thank you, Senior, I think I understand. Lotus Sun nodded. She looked at Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch on the screen, a little absent-minded. This was a very strange feeling. Chapter 1307. In the Forsaken Land of the Gods, after countless haggling. Now, only the patriarchs of the Wu, Li and Sheng families had not left. 300 lives worth of cultivation. Wu family had wanted to cry. He did not know if it was because the pillar spirits did not like him. His resurrection price had been raised to 300 lives. Wu family head was on the verge of breaking down. The price of 300 lives was no different from choosing to reincarnate. However, Wu family head did not dare to ask or say anything. With the pillar spirit's temper, he would be punished for another 30 years if he asked. I think I should just die. The Wu family head gave up on resisting. He sat down on the ground and was filled with regret. If he had known this would happen, he would have accepted the punishment of 100 lives. Otherwise, he would not have ended up like this. I think we can still save him. Li family head was sweating. His punishment was not much better than Wu family head's. The more he was punished, the more he was punished. He had already accumulated to 200 lives. Sheng family head was even more miserable. He was the mastermind behind the fight, and was sentenced to 500 lives. In other words, the three of them combined. They had to pay the cultivation of 1,000 lives to leave the forsaken land of the gods. In short, whether they could leave or not, the Sheng family head would have the word miserable written on his forehead. There must be another way. Li family head gritted his teeth. He was still unwilling to give up. He prayed devoutly, hoping that someone would descend from the heavens to save them. The three family heads knew very well that if they chose to reincarnate, with the Wu, Li and Sheng families losing their Dao gods, they would quickly collapse in a very short period of time. It seems that the three family heads are troubled. An ethereal voice came from the forsaken land of the gods. It was impossible to tell where the voice came from. It seemed to come from far away, yet close at the same time. Soon, the owner of the voice appeared. They only saw a faint silhouette that was definitely not human. The three family heads were shocked. They could not believe that they could see other living beings in the forsaken land of the gods. Moreover, they were sure that this creature was definitely not a dead soul, or something like that. It was fundamentally different from them. This mystical creature was shrouded in a thick gray fog, and exuded a divine aura. Its entire body exuded a sense of mystery. Although he didn't know the origin of the creature in the gray fog, he didn't know what it was. Just based on his intuition, the Li family head felt that perhaps they could be saved. May I ask if you can save me? The Li family's family head revealed a pleading look. Saving you is easy. The creature in the gray fog laughed. I can revive you without consuming any of your cultivation. As soon as he finished speaking, the pillar spirit in the forsaken land of the gods could not help but speak. Shut up. You shouldn't be here. The forsaken pillar of God trembled slightly, as if it was extremely angry at the appearance of the gray fog creature. Wang Long. The entire forsaken land of the gods began to riot. The originally calm space began to tremble violently. Countless black lotuses condensed with powerful psionic energy bloomed from the cracked ground. These black lotuses were astonishingly powerful, and exuded incredible divine power. The Wu, Li and Sheng family heads were surrounded by these black lotuses. At the same time, countless vines emerged from the cracks in the ground and wrapped around their feet. In the eyes of the three of them, these black lotuses were no different from landmines, and the might contained within a single lotus was sufficient to annihilate their souls. However, at this moment, the mysterious creature in the gray fog spoke again. It was in the forsaken land of the gods. But it did not care about the pillar spirit at all. I advise you to stop. You know that exploding these black lotuses will not benefit anyone, the creature in the gray fog said. This was not a tone of discussion, but an unquestionable command. For a long time, the pillar spirit did not speak. It was obviously afraid of the creature in the gray fog, but it also knew that this was the forsaken land of the gods. This was not the first time the creature in the gray fog had challenged its authority as a pillar spirit. Therefore, this time, the pillar spirit did not intend to continue tolerating it. Then let's die together. The pillar spirit's voice was cold. It decided to fight the creature in the gray fog head-on. It controlled the black lotuses on the ground, and the black lotuses immediately erupted with blazing light. No. At this moment, the souls of the three family heads trembled. They did not doubt that these black lotuses would explode in the next second and completely destroy their souls. However, what they did not expect was that the power of the creature in the gray fog had far exceeded their expectations. This was a battle that exceeded their imagination. The three family heads could not help but wonder if there was another realm between Tao Divinity and Tao Ancestor. Whether it was the power of the pillar spirit or the creature in the gray fog, they were far beyond their imagination. Finally, can't stand it anymore. You want to explode the black lotuses? How can I let you have your way? The creature in the gray fog let out a light laugh. It seemed to have expected such an outcome. The next moment, the mysterious gray fog that lingered around the creature in the gray fog suddenly spread, covering the entire forsaken land of the gods. The gray fog was like the claws of a tautai, devouring the black lotuses and the accompanying black vines on the ground. In an instant, the terrifying black lotuses produced by the pillar spirit's rage did not even have time to explode before they instantly disappeared. You're just something created by the Tao Ancestor. You can't possibly be my match. The next moment, the overwhelming gray fog in the forsaken land of the gods condensed again. The outline of the creature in the gray fog also appeared beside the forsaken pillar of the gods. He stretched out his claws and pressed them on the pillar. It was a caress on the surface, but it was actually a threat. You rely on your authority to do whatever you want, but in the end, you will be punished. The pillar spirit was helpless. It did not expect to meet such a rascal and annoying fellow. He had overstepped his authority and repeatedly interfered with the matters of the forsaken land of the gods. Life is too boring. I have to find something interesting, right? The creature in the gray fog released its claws and laughed again. I'm just joking with you. I don't really want to kill you. There aren't many enchanted toys left behind by the Tao Ancestor. I have to keep you guys alive for it to be interesting. What are you trying to do? The pillar spirit still did not understand why the creature in the gray fog was willing to save the three clan masters. I'm not trying to do anything. The gray fog creature spread its claws and looked at the heads of the three great families. I just think their greed is very interesting. How about it? Can you give me some face? The divine pillar spirit gritted its teeth and said. It wanted to say, you're courting death. However, the words were already at the tip of his tongue, and he was too lazy to continue speaking, because it knew that there was no way it could communicate with the creature in the gray fog. Take the three of them and scram. This was the last thing the pillar spirit said to the creature in the gray fog. You're just an enchanted toy, but you have quite the temper. The creature in the gray fog chuckled. The next moment. Chapter 1308. As the last three patriarchs left, the forsaken land of the gods fell into silence once again. The appearance of the gray mist creature made the divine pillar feel helpless. It was powerless to resist the gray fog creature, let alone refute its words. Enchanted toys. The divine pillar spirit was helpless. For a long time, the gray fog creatures had interfered with the divine punishment of the forsaken land of the gods more than once or twice. The pillar spirit had been enduring and restraining its temper. However, this time, its patience had reached its limit. Although it had allowed the gray fog creature to take the three family heads away, it was only a stalling tactic. Even if I have to pay the price this time, I will definitely punish you. The pillar spirit's voice echoed in the forsaken land of the gods. If there was one person in this world who could teach the gray fog creature a lesson, In that case, the forsaken pillar of God could only think of one person. However, summoning this person's soul to the forsaken land of the gods was extremely dangerous. If it was not careful, it would suffer a backlash. However, in order to be able to punish the creature in the gray fog, at the same time, it was also to ensure that Tao ancestor Wang's cultivation path could be passed down for a longer period of time. The spirit of the divine pillar knew that the creature in the gray mist had reached a point where it had to be eliminated. Therefore, even if this matter was risky, it was going to defy the heavens. In the next moment, the divine pillar spirit gathered its spirit and began to use the entire forsaken land of the gods to perform the summoning ritual. A total of 6,000 lifetimes worth of cultivation. This was all the cultivation that the forsaken pillar of God had collected through the divine punishment so far. Now the forsaken pillar of the gods had spared no effort in sacrificing it, just to obtain enough power to summon a person's divine soul. Wang Ling opened his eyes. He discovered that he had been summoned to a dark and secluded space. What came into view was a huge altar. The forsaken land of the gods. Wang Ling immediately figured out what kind of place he was in. Previously, when Monk Jin Deng was broadcasting live in the True Sovereign Hall of the Battle Sect, he had also learned of the existence of such a place through the peeping screen. It was just that Wang Ling didn't expect. He had actually been summoned here. He was clearly in the Wang family's small villa a moment ago. In the blink of an eye, Wang Ling felt his soul tremble slightly, and then it was summoned here. He must have paid a huge price. Wang Ling was very clear. There was no one in this world who had the ability to summon him, unless they paid an immeasurable price. Wang Ling stared at the altar in front of him. He knew very well who had done this. The God Pillar Spirit had the ability to punish all divine souls in the cultivation world. This ability could even surpass the heavenly Tao. Because of this, other than the godly Pillar Spirit, no one else could do it. Why are you looking for me? At that moment, Wang Ling stepped forward. The king's eye saw the true appearance of the Pillar Spirit. It was a bronze-colored cat with strange runes engraved all over its body. Hiding at the very top of the god's forsaken pillar, the Pillar Spirit licked its cat paw lightly. I don't want to trouble Ling Jinren unless I have no other choice. You know me? I have long heard of it, the Pillar Spirit of the forsaken pillar of God replied. Most importantly, it could clearly know the true cause of death of every person who was sent to the forsaken land of the gods. It was precisely because it had witnessed the scene of Wang Ling crushing the 6 great Tao gods at the same time that the forsaken pillar of gods was even more certain of Wang Ling's power. Although the Pillar Spirit had known of Wang Ling's existence before this, it hadn't had a true understanding of his true strength. The creature in the gray fog? Wang Ling asked telepathically at that moment. He had used the King's Eye's power to reverse everything that had just happened in the forsaken land of the gods. At the same time, he clearly saw the non-human creature that had appeared in the forsaken land of the gods wrapped in a thick layer of gray fog. This creature in the gray fog was insufferably arrogant. It completely disregarded the authority of the godly Pillar Spirit. It had taken away the heads of the Wu, Li and Sheng families in an extremely arrogant manner, and had verbally humiliated the Pillar Spirit. At that moment, Wang Ling saw everything through the King's Eye's power. I'm sure Jinren has also seen how arrogant this guy in the gray fog is. The bronze cat looked at Wang Ling and said earnestly, if we don't stop him and teach him a lesson, the cultivation world will fall into chaos. Ling Jinren, don't worry, I won't ask you to do it for free. Wang Ling was curious as to what the bronze cat could offer in exchange. Now, Wang Ling knew that his horizons had already been broadened. Ordinary crispy noodle snacks could no longer satisfy him. Unless it was a limited edition, special flavored crispy noodle snack that he had never eaten before. And he couldn't just give him one packet. At least one box. I know, Ling Jinren is currently rescuing a girl. The bronze cat Pillar Spirit of the forsaken land of the gods said. That girl is indeed a child of the void, and the entire void is looking forward to her return. Once that girl's soul falls into the void's hands, everything will be too late. In exchange for teaching the creature in the gray fog a lesson, the bronze cat said at that moment, originally, only Tao gods are qualified to keep a backup copy of my forsaken land of the gods. If Ling Junren agrees to my request, I can make an exception and put that girl's name on my list. Hearing this, Wang Ling raised his eyebrows. He already understood what the bronze cat meant. The forsaken land of the gods had the right to control a spirit that surpassed the authority of heavenly Tao. If the forsaken land of the gods stepped forward and detained Lotus Sun's spirit in advance when it was threatened, it would undoubtedly be another layer of insurance. In Wang Ling's view, this condition was reasonable. After all, the girl was only at the foundation establishment stage. But now, she had the privilege of a Tao god. But Wang Ling still didn't directly agree. This was a negotiation. Especially when the other party came to negotiate on their own initiative, he had the initiative. As long as he wasn't in a hurry to agree, the other party would definitely continue to increase the bargaining chips. This was a trick Wang Ling had learned from Father Wang. When Lai Mengmeng came to press him for more manuscripts, Father Wang often used this trick to swindle a lot of recommendation spots. Everything went as Wang Ling had expected. After a few minutes of silence, the bronze cat increased the bargaining chip as expected. How about this, Shinren? I can open up another privilege. When that Miss Lotus Sun leaves the forsaken land of the gods, she won't need to consume any of her cultivation, and will be directly released. Wang Ling was silent. Apart from this, I'll also be responsible for her safety. As long as she's in the forsaken land of the gods, I'll take action against anyone who trespasses here, even if it's a void creature. Wang Ling was silent. And a box of limited edition crispy noodle snacks. Deal. Wang Ling agreed. Hearing this, the bronze cat couldn't help breathing a long sigh of relief. As an existence that could control a cultivator's spirit like God, the bronze cat never thought that there would actually be a day when it would ask a youngster from Earth for help. The bronze cat thought it was God. But it wasn't until it knew Wang Ling that it clearly realized its mistake. It realized that it didn't have the qualifications to be God. And Wang Ling might be an existence even more powerful than God. God might have called Jobs away, because he wanted to play with his phone. God might have called Kobe away, because he wanted to play basketball. But there was no way God would call Wang Ling away, because he wanted to get beaten up. Chapter 1309. Wang Ling came to his senses, and his spirit returned to his body. His conversation with the bronze cat in the forsaken land of the gods had seemed very long, but in fact had only lasted for a moment. In front of him, Survival Heavenly Tao and the human form Loopy Toad were still producing death substitute talismans in an assembly line. This was Wang Ling's second layer of insurance after Lotus Sun had obtained the Buddha Golden Lotus. As for the forsaken land of the gods, the bronze cat's promise was the third layer. He didn't believe that with these 3 layers of insurance, the girl's soul would be snatched away by anyone. What did you see? Loopy Toad asked hurriedly when it saw that Wang Ling seemed blank for a moment. Wang Ling was usually relatively focused because he had to study seriously. Wang Ling, who loved to study, wouldn't become absent-minded in class. So if he was distracted, then there was only one possibility. His primordial spirit had left his body. After living with Wang Ling for so long, Loopy Toad felt that this level of understanding was already completely basic. The creature in the gray fog, Wang Ling said. What? Loopy Toad didn't understand. But Survival Heavenly Tao, who was writing the death substitute talisman, abruptly stopped when it heard these words. There was disbelief in its eyes. How did Jinren know? What on earth is the creature in the gray fog? Loopy Toad asked. This is taboo, I can't say. Survival Heavenly Tao trembled. Taboo. Loopy Toad laughed. Can this taboo be worth a few slaps from my little Master Ling? Survival Heavenly Tao was instantly stupefied when it heard this. It really didn't know how to answer this question. Survival Heavenly Tao hadn't experienced the power of the creature in the gray fog before. However, from the word of mouth of those gold men in Heavenly Court, it had a rough idea that this creature in the gray fog wasn't any weaker than the monks. For a very long time, Survival Heavenly Tao was lost in thought. He didn't know where Wang Ling had learned of the existence of this creature in the gray fog. But Survival Heavenly Tao had second thoughts. He felt that there was no harm in saying it. This creature in the gray fog was indeed terrifying. and Heavenly Court regarded it as a taboo. But the problem was that it was now in Ling Zhenren's home. What place in the world could be safer than Ling Zhenren's home? Furthermore, since Ling Zhenren had mentioned the creature in the gray fog, it was likely that he was already prepared. Therefore, when he thought of this, Survival Heavenly Dao felt that it did not matter even if he said it out. This is a taboo existence. It wreaked havoc in the Heavenly Court a long time ago. Life Heavenly Dao said with fear in his eyes. Wreaking havoc in the Heavenly Court? Is this person related to Dao ancestor Wang? Loopy Toad asked. It had to be said that this question hit the mark. In this day and age, those who could wreak havoc in the Heavenly Court were naturally not easy to deal with. To give an inappropriate example, they were like those people who owed money but did not return it. They were essentially all big shots. I've never seen this gray fog creature before. It's said to be a divine beast reared by Dao ancestor Wang. No one has seen what it looks like, and all they know is that it has a pair of indestructible claws, said Survival Heavenly Dao. Then which one are you more afraid of, Lord Jinka's hand on your neck or the claws of this creature in the gray fog? Loopy Toad asked. This sole question made Survival Heavenly Dao's mouth twitch. That was a great question. It was like the question of who to save first when your girlfriend and your mother fell into the water at the same time. Whichever side you chose, you would die. Their Heavenly Dao was really too lowly. There was a trace of despair in Survival Heavenly Dao's eyes. Spiritual Master, please forgive me. I really don't know how to answer this question. But this creature in the gray fog is indeed terrifying, and maybe the most powerful opponent Spiritual Master has ever encountered. Saying this, Survival Heavenly Dao imagined a particularly low probability possibility in its mind. In any case, both sides were demons. It would be better to let the demons fight each other. If they died together, wouldn't their Heavenly Court's peace be restored in the end? Wang Ling could read Survival Heavenly Dao's mind, and he was silent. He didn't know when his impression of Heavenly Dao had become that of a demon. Wang Ling didn't understand. Wasn't it just because he had put Jinka on death Heavenly Dao's neck and questioned him? He had become a demon just like that? Furthermore, he had just been a little anxious at that time, and hadn't really intended to kill Death Heavenly Dao. At that moment, Wang Ling was reflecting. He was such an amiable person. He obediently abided by the Heavenly Dao's rules. If he really had any requests, he had paid the price for them in an equivalent exchange. Don't treat the village chief like a cadre. Expired crispy noodle snacks were still a delicacy, right? He couldn't bear to give it to ordinary people. In the end, this group of Heavenly Dao actually thought of him in such a way. They didn't know what was good for them. It served them right that the first season of the anime didn't appear. What is Ling Zhenren thinking about? Seeing that Wang Ling was in a daze again, Heavenly Dao of Survival asked weakly. He was actually a little afraid that he had really offended Wang Ling. But Wang Ling was a generous person, and wouldn't fuss over so many things. Furthermore, in order to shake off the impression of him as a devil, in the eyes of the Heavenly Dao, Wang Ling decided to go with the flow, and do a good deed for the Heavenly Dao little golden men. Has no one seen what the gray fog creature looks like? Wang Ling asked telepathically at that moment. He looked at Survival Heavenly Dao, and tried his best to maintain an amiable expression. Survival Heavenly Dao shivered at this stiff smile. Perfected One, please don't smile. It's a little scary. You look like you're crying when you smile. In the end, the Heavenly Dao of Survival didn't have the guts to say this in quotation marks. Wang Ling didn't care at all, and continued to ask telepathically. Then, do you want to see? Survival Heavenly Dao was instantly stupefied at these words. See what? That creature in the gray fog? Yes. Wang Ling nodded. As soon as he said that, Survival Heavenly Dao had an extremely astonished expression on his face. Since ancient times, the creature in the gray fog had always been extremely mysterious, and no one had ever seen what it really looked like. This definitely wasn't just for show. At the same time, the pressure from the mystery hidden in the depths of the gray fog made everyone who knew of the creature's existence go silent out of fear, and their faces change color at the mere mention of it. There was always a fear of the unknown. What Wang Ling was doing now was to help the heavenly Tao get rid of the creature's fear. Perfected one, this. My young master is asking you. Do you want to see it or not? Don't talk so much nonsense. Loopy Toad rolled its eyes. Survival heavenly Tao gritted his teeth, and at that moment, he seemed to have made up his mind. I want to see it. Good. Wang Ling nodded. He opened his king's eye and surveyed the universe. When the power of the king's eye penetrated every corner of the universe, Wang Ling's line of sight finally caught sight of the creature hidden in the gray fog. With the power of the king's eye, the gray fog lingering around the creature in the gray fog was clearly gone. Wang Ling projected the creature's true form into the air above his bedroom. Through the layers of fog, Survival Heavenly Tao finally saw what the creature in the gray fog looked like. This is... Survival Heavenly Tao turned pale with fright. He never would have thought. The creature in the gray fog should have looked like a high-end, imposing and classy creature. Its true form was actually a groundhog. Chapter 13:10. Why was the creature in the gray fog a marmot? At that moment, the expression on Survival Heavenly Tao's face could only be described as marvelous. After all, the creature in the gray fog had always been an enigmatic existence in the eyes of Heavenly Tao, and Strength Heavenly Tao even called it the mysterious power hidden beneath the gray fog. Those claws, which were said to be indestructible, struck fear into the hearts of the Heavenly Tao golden men in the heavenly court. For example, Survival Heavenly Tao had imagined the creature in the gray fog countless times. That was Tao ancestor Wang's divine beast. In its complete form, it was at least the size of a planet. Its every movement was filled with terrifying power that could destroy a planet. It stood on a 9-dragon coffin, wore a starry robe, and had hands like ancient blades that could cut down everything in the world. But now, this persona had completely collapsed. Marmot. Why was the mysterious creature in the gray fog this kind of creature that looked retarded and liked to make strange sounds? At that moment, Survival Heavenly Tao, who had learned the truth, had the urge to flip the table. But considering that this was Wang Ling's house, Survival Heavenly Tao restrained himself from courting death. Because this table had also been enlightened, he couldn't afford to provoke it at all. Furthermore, the enlightened gremlins of the Wang family were very united. If he casually flipped the table, he might be hung up and beaten. He didn't want to be teleported into Lord Ma's inner space to eat sh*t with the cosmic god tree. Mythological beasts are all born from chaos, so why is it a groundhog? Survival Heavenly Tao was bewildered. He felt like he had learned too big of a secret, and he didn't feel good at all. The reason is very simple. It might not be a marmot at all, but just a divine beast that looks very much like a marmot. This kind of probability is not impossible. At that moment, Book of Sage Immortal interjected once again. There are all kinds of divine beasts born from chaos. A lot of people think that the bigger they are, the more powerful they are, but that's not the case. What do you mean? Speak more clearly, Loopy Toad also asked. According to the data extrapolated from big data, the strength of a divine beast is determined by the primal chaos chi in its body. The more primal chaos chi it has, the stronger it is. Thus, a lot of people pursue large divine beasts, believing that the bigger the body, the more primal chaos chi it has in its body. Book of Sage Immortal said. In reality, the theory of body size is a complete misconception. The smaller the divine beast bred from a chaos egg, the more valuable it was, and the more powerful it was. Therefore, this marmot-like gray fog creature is actually a very rare marmot-like mythological beast. No nesting dolls. The corner of Loopy Toad's eye twitched. In any case, it looks no different from a marmot. I think we'll call it a marmot. I really didn't expect it to be like this. Survival Heavenly Tao was amazed, feeling that he had learned something new. On the other hand, he had obtained the answer to the true appearance of the creature in the gray fog. At the same time, it also meant that the other Heavenly Taos also knew about it. The information between the Heavenly Taos were all interconnected. There were no secrets. There's actually something that I don't quite understand. Since your 3000 Heavenly Tao can't stand this groundhog any longer, why don't you combine with it? Wouldn't it have been better to get rid of it earlier? Loopy Toad asked at that moment. In fact, this was also what Wang Ling wanted to ask. The heavenly Tao of survival couldn't help but sigh at the mention of the fusion of the heavenly Tao. Heavenly survival, heavenly Tao. Back then, Tao ancestor Wang divided us into 3,000 parts to limit our power. At the same time, I've also set up a fusion restriction. Although we can fuse, there's a limit to the number. At most, we can fuse with 100 heavenly Taos. Loopy Toad. 100 heavenly Tao fusion, what level is that? Heavenly survival Tao. A slap from Ling Jinren won't kill you. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. Survival heavenly Tao. It's been a long time since the 3,000 heavenly Taos fused together. To us, this is no different from a fantasy story. Also, this restriction is very strange. Even Ling Jinren won't be able to break it so easily. Indeed. Wang Ling nodded secretly. In theory, his king's eye could break all restrictions, curses, unclean things, and so on. But for the time being, Wang Ling couldn't detect any restrictions on survival heavenly Tao. But he felt that it wasn't that he couldn't solve it, but that he still hadn't figured out this problem, which Tao ancestor Wang had left behind. Removing the restriction was actually like solving a math problem. One needed to understand the problem type and find the right solution. Sometimes, it was necessary to reverse the entire calculation process. So as long as he found the specific method Tao ancestor Wang had set up the restriction back then, it would be very easy to reverse it. Those complicated restrictions couldn't be solved by simply chanting an incantation or setting up an array. Wang Ling realized that Tao ancestor Wang was a restriction maniac who really liked to lock down other people's authority. For example, the restriction to enter the unspeakable was another problem which Tao ancestor Wang had left behind. How does Ling Jinren plan to deal with this creature in the gray fog? Survival heavenly Tao asked. This was actually a very obscure question. Based on its understanding of Wang Ling, survival heavenly Tao now understood a little about Wang Ling's style of doing things. He wasn't the kind of person who would make the first move, and this was indeed the case. Even if Wang Ling had agreed to Bronze Cat's request and planned to deal with the creature in the gray fog, now he still needed a reason to do so. The opportunity will come very soon, Wang Ling said indifferently to survival heavenly Tao telepathically at that moment. He had a premonition. He had a premonition that this groundhog would soon go to heavenly court to stir up trouble. As it turned out, Wang Ling's premonition was right on target. At the arrival of an uninvited guest in heavenly court, all the heavenly Tao little golden men were terrified. The creature in the gray fog appeared in the conference hall of the heavenly Tao governing committee. It pressed its sharp claws against strength heavenly Tao's neck, and its words were filled with an unquestionable threat. If you don't change the white list, I'll kill you. As Wang Ling had expected, the creature in the gray fog had indeed come to heavenly court to stir up trouble. It threatened the heavenly Tao with its death, and demanded that the heavenly Tao add the names of the heads of the Wu, Li and Sheng families to the white list. The remaining main heavenly Tao in heavenly court felt deeply helpless in the face of this request. Strength heavenly Tao's forehead was beaded with sweat. You should know that we don't have the right to decide on the whitelist. All the whitelist users are automatically selected after meeting Tao ancestors' criteria. I don't care. In short, you have to think of a way. The creature in the gray fog continued to threaten with its claws. Then just kill me. Strength heavenly Tao refused to comply even to the death. The creature in the gray fog was a little stupefied and didn't know why. He felt that there was something wrong with the heavenly Tao today, and that it wasn't as afraid of him as it had been when he had come in the past. Are you sure you want to talk to me like this? The creature in the gray fog sneered. In the end, strength heavenly Tao stared at him neither humbly nor overbearingly. Give up. You stupid groundhog. What did you call me? The creature in the gray fog was alarmed. He had been hiding in the gray fog for so long. Why did someone know what he looked like? What the hell was going on? The creature in the gray fog roared inwardly. Chapter 13:11. Buried in the earth had always been troubled by one thing. Not only was his name uncouth, but even his appearance was identical to a groundhog's. This caused Buried in the Earth to always have a low self-esteem. That was until he learned to use the chaotic power in his body to fuse with the gray fog in the air to hide his true form. Only then did he slowly regain his confidence. That's right, Buried in the Earth. This was the name that the gray fog creature hated so much. Now he gave himself a new name, Gray Mist Lord. Back then, Tao ancestor Wang had casually given him 3 names. Buried in the Earth was relatively good. Tao ancestor Wang had originally planned to call him Buried in the Earth or Buried in the Earth. But the gray fog creature resolutely refused. He felt that his name should be more domineering. However, Tao ancestor Wang didn't seem to think that way. After Tao ancestor Wang gave birth to him, Buried in the Earth gained Tao ancestor Wang's favor. He had thought that he was a combat-type mythological beast. However, Tao ancestor Wang seemed to only treat him as a mascot for fun when he was bored. He even launched a series of pig-raising plans for him. When he was just born, he was less than 5 kilograms. With Tao ancestor Wang's hard work, he managed to raise him to 5 kilograms. Thus, the gray fog creature had another name at that time. Tun 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 Tun. Think about it. Was there any mythological beast in this world that was more miserable than him? As a mythological beast that looked 99% similar to a groundhog, the groundhog felt that he was in extreme pain. All of this changed after Tao ancestor Wang entered the cycle of reincarnation. Using the gray fog to hide his identity, the groundhog began to establish a fierce persona for himself. He wasn't willing to be an ordinary groundhog anymore. Thus, he changed his name and began to be the mysterious creature hidden in the gray fog. Gray Mist Lord. For thousands of years, the groundhog worked hard to change his persona as a pet, shaping himself into a mysterious and ferocious creature shrouded in gray fog. He had wreaked havoc in the heavenly court and even harassed the forsaken land of the gods several times, leaving a deep impression on the Qingtong cat and the heavenly Tao. And after the heavenly Tao Golden Man's continuous succession, the mystery he created became more and more outrageous, describing him as more and more terrifying. After an unknown number of years, the Gray Mist Lord, he finally changed his appearance and got rid of his identity as a divine beast pet. Now that the heavenly Tao's words had exposed his true colors, he was unable to accept this no matter what. Who is it? Who on earth revealed his true appearance? Gray Mist Lord was furious. Killing intent had already risen in his heart, and he wanted to kill all the heavenly Tao Golden Men who knew his true appearance. However, the Gray Mist Lord remained calm at the critical moment. He had endured for so many years, and it wasn't easy for him to change his appearance and hide his ugly appearance as a groundhog. If he endured for a little longer, it wouldn't be too late to ask these heavenly Tao who was the mastermind who had exposed his identity. I was too violent. This is indeed ungraceful. At this thought, Gray Mist Lord retracted his claws from Strength Heavenly Tao's neck. At the same time, he made the gray mist even thicker. He was exerting pressure on the surrounding heavenly Tao. How about this? We can discuss the white list of the 3 domain of the gods' family heads later. At that moment, hidden in the mysterious gray mist Lord smiled slightly. I just need you to tell me who on earth is backing you up? If I know the answer today, I'll let it go. Otherwise, I won't let the heavenly court have peace today. As soon as he said this, the heavenly Tao in the main positions were speechless. Wasn't it obvious who was backing you up behind the scenes? You're just a divine beast by Tao ancestor Wang's side. Don't you know anything? You even went to the forsaken land of the gods and fished out the 3 domain of the gods' family heads. Logically speaking, there was no way they didn't know about Wang Ling's existence. Of course, after thinking it over, Strength Heavenly Tao suddenly understood. Because of the great shielding spell. The truth was that the 6 great Tao gods who had been crushed to death still didn't know Ling Jinren's true identity. And the most important thing was that these 6 people had died too quickly. Gray Mist Lord actually hadn't seen how they had died at all. It seems that this groundhog still doesn't know the truth. In the mental space, Strength Heavenly Tao couldn't help laughing. Also, this guy has a past record. He just wants to cause trouble. Space Heavenly Tao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the past, The groundhog had in fact forcibly gone to the forsaken land of the gods to bail out people, and then brought the little brothers he had bailed out to cause trouble everywhere. Relying on his strength, he thought he could stir up trouble in the forsaken land of the gods. Even the heavenly Tao had to obediently obey his orders. Hence, he had developed a condescending personality. For the groundhog, it didn't matter at all how these people had ended up in the forsaken land of the gods, because as the boss, he had the ability to fish out everyone who had gone in. It was just that this time, the groundhog hadn't expected that the luxurious Titanic cruise ship he was driving was about to crash into a huge iceberg. What do you think? Everyone, do you want to say it? Strength Heavenly Tao was actually still hesitant. This is a good opportunity. Time Heavenly Tao smiled at that moment. Ling Jinren is actually waiting for us to sell him out. As far as I know, that Qingtong cat in the forsaken land of the gods just made a deal with Ling Jinren, but he doesn't have a reason to make a move yet. What do you mean? Just talking won't do. We have to provoke this groundhog. If he causes a ruckus, Ling Jinren will have a reason to deal with him. Got it. In the mental space, several of the main heavenly Tao came up with a plan. Thus, they instantly understood how to deal with this groundhog in front of them. Grey Mist Lord, calm down. It's not that we don't want to say it. It's just that if we say it, we're afraid. AI. Strength Heavenly Tao said in a worried tone. Afraid of what? The groundhog was puzzled. That senior isn't easy to deal with. Strength Heavenly Tao said. Of course, he was saying this on purpose. Their current goal was to provoke this groundhog into taking the initiative to attack Wang Ling HM? In this world, other than the monk on Earth, who else can be my match? Who else can be my match? Of course. If it wasn't for the restriction left by Tao Ancestor on Earth, which damaged my strength, the monk would have to die if I ran into him somewhere else. The groundhog was very unconvinced. Hands on his hips, he said. Say it. Who is this person? I'll destroy him. Senior, you can destroy him? That would truly be a great deed for our heavenly court. I believe that Tao Ancestor will be pleased to hear this. Strength Heavenly Tao said. It's just killing a person. If he's a real expert, I'll kill him for free. The groundhog sneered. Its claws couldn't wait to kill the person whom Strength Heavenly Tao was talking about. This person actually dared to expose his identity. He wanted to gouge out this person's eyes, dig out his heart. Then he would trap this person in his black fog for all eternity, and make him, Grey Mist Lord, his slave. Wang Ling? Question mark. Chapter 1312. This was a typical murder case caused by inferiority complex. In this era where appearance was everything, even mythological beasts might feel inferior, let alone human cultivators. According to the scientific statistics of the cultivation world, under the same lifespan, the income of a good-looking person would be 18% higher than that of an average-looking person. The Grey Mist Lord had been maintaining his ferocious image for many years, but he didn't expect it to be exposed by the king's eye one day, and his image completely collapsed. I won't take revenge for this. He vowed not to become a beast. Within the grey mist, the groundhog's voice sounded. I need your help with this. I need you to lure him out of Earth. He had already thought of a way to torture Wang Ling. However, if he chose to attack on Earth, it would affect his strength to a certain extent because of the restrictions left behind by the Tao Ancestor. Hence, the groundhog decided to fight somewhere other than Earth. Only in this way could his strength be fully displayed. You must be joking, Senior. How could we possibly have the ability to draw the attention of that being on Earth? Senior, you're very resourceful. As long as you launch an attack in the direction of Earth, I believe that being on Earth will respond quickly, said Strength Heavenly Tao. I see. The Grey Mist Lord nodded. He had also been enlightened by Strength Heavenly Law's words. It was all because of the restrictions set up by the Tao Ancestor on Earth, so he had never been able to use his fists and kicks on Earth. Then he only needed to destroy the entire Earth. Wouldn't that solve the problem? The groundhog was ecstatic to see this. He regretted not having thought of this earlier. As long as Earth disappeared, then the last place in the universe that could restrict his strength would be completely gone. At that time, he would be able to do whatever he wanted. I'll do it right away. The groundhog was extremely excited. His figure quickly disappeared into the gray fog. The gray fog seeped into space and formed a torrent, quickly bringing him to the moon and looking at Earth from afar. Then, he raised his claws and condensed the power of chaos from the gray mist. The wisps of chaotic power condensed into a purple-black magic ball at the tip of his claw. However, it was only the size of an egg. However, it hid an astonishing amount of power. As the chaotic magic ball materialized, large chunks of the surface of the moon began to crumble, and the explosive power of the chaotic magic ball caused the area where the groundhog was standing to cave in deeply. There was a loud bang. In an instant, a deep pit with a radius of over 1,000 miles was formed. The moon. This was the best sniping position, and also the best cannon for launching chaos orbs. Due to the existence of the moon, this provided the groundhog with a huge recoil. This magic ball wasn't all of Grey Mist Lord's power. The power of chaos in him was 35%, which was more than 30% for ordinary divine beasts. This was also the main reason why groundhogs had always been able to do whatever they wanted. The chaos magic ball in his hand had only condensed 5% of its power. However, if he were to launch it, it would be more than enough to reach the Earth's core and detonate it. Farewell, Earth. The groundhog chuckled coldly. He stretched out his hand and pointed. Another deafening rumble. The egg-sized chaos orb was instantly released from the tip of the claw. The massive recoil force caused the moon beneath the groundhog's feet to move back several hundred meters. The Earth was going to disappear. Once the forbidden area that could restrict him disappeared, no one would be able to restrict him anymore. The groundhog stood on the moon and admired his masterpiece from afar. After launching the chaos orb, it was heading toward Earth at the speed of light. Art was an explosion. He would be able to witness the destruction of this blue planet with his own eyes. This would definitely be a beautiful scene. If he were to succeed, perhaps only 2 people would be able to survive on this planet. One was that monk. The other was that detestable bastard who had discovered his true identity. Even if those 2 didn't die, they must have been severely injured by the impact of the chaos orb. If he could take advantage of this opportunity to get rid of those 2, then no one in this universe would be able to restrict him anymore. However, what the Grey Mist Lord didn't expect was, just as the chaos orb was about to reach Earth, a terrifying turn of events suddenly occurred. What's going on? The groundhog was puzzled. This was because he felt an indescribable pressure suddenly surging over his body. Soon, he discovered where this strange feeling was coming from. Shadow. The groundhog was shocked. To his surprise, he discovered that for some reason, the huge shadow on the dark side of the moon seemed to have been bestowed with a powerful spiritual nature and converged toward his feet. These shadows were like a tidal wave, flowing toward his feet from the dark side of the moon before converging to form a powerful quagmire. They grabbed onto him tightly. Then, they surged toward his body. Shadow binding technique? The groundhog was extremely astonished by this sudden development. Even the Heavenly Tao's Great Shadow Technique didn't have this kind of ability, let alone a normal shadow binding technique. To think that it could control the entire shadow on the dark side of the moon to bind him in a short instant. These shadows crawled toward his feet before wrapping around his claws, forcefully controlling him to interrupt the chaos orb that was about to detonate the Earth. There's a ghost here. The groundhog turned pale with fright. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. Could it be that this is also a type of great Tao? An existence that exists alongside the heavenly Tao. Soon he thought of a possibility. This was the only explanation that could explain why there was an ability that could instantly control the power of the entire shadow on the dark side of the moon. At that moment, the groundhog spread out his gray fog. He hadn't expected this kind of sudden development, but it was still a little far-fetched to think that it could restrain him just like that. Although it wasn't easy to break free of the shadow's binding, this was mainly because this was the groundhog's first time encountering this type of great Tao power, and it was unfamiliar with it. Very quickly, he manipulated the gray fog around him to tear apart the shadow at his feet and around his body. He broke free of its binding and swiftly left the moon. Just as he was about to leave the area, the shadows that had surged up from the dark side of the moon instantly retreated and returned to their original positions. This was the first time he had encountered this type of great Tao power. But now, the groundhog was certain of one thing. This great Tao power came from the earth. Apart from the monk and that peeping dog, are there other experts? The groundhog stared in the direction of the earth, amused. That's my little sister. At that moment, a cold voice rang out in the groundhog's soul. A youngster appeared behind him. He was wearing casual red and white sportswear, and had one hand in his pocket as he stared at the groundhog. In fact, the moment the groundhog launched the chaos orb, Wang Ling was already planning to make a move. But what he didn't expect was, he didn't know if it was because she had sensed that the earth was under threat. This actually activated Wang Wan's self-defense mechanism. This girl was clearly still in the belly, but she could actually control the shadow on the dark side of the moon. Then, she used the shadow to forcefully control the groundhog to interrupt the chaos orb. As expected of his little sister, Anwan was amazing. Chapter 13:13. In the Wang family's small villa, Mother Wang, who was knitting a sweater, suddenly felt her stomach ache. She put down her tools and grabbed Father Wang's hand. It suddenly hurts. She's not going to give birth, is she? Father Wang was nervous. His heart ached when he saw Mother Wang sweat from the pain. Let's go to the hospital. But very quickly, Mother Wang shook her head. No need. The pain went away as quickly as it came. Mother Wang had already recovered, and her water hadn't broken yet. Overall, it wasn't a big deal. This kind of sudden pain usually happened in the past, but this time it seemed to be especially painful. It must be Anwan being naughty again. Father Wang rubbed Mother Wang's belly and couldn't help laughing. Anwan, be a little more obedient. Mom can't stand you being so naughty. I think Anwan definitely has something important to do, Mother Wang said with a smile. A loving expression appeared on his face. Furthermore, I discovered that every time the pain subsided, my body would become even better. Have you noticed that I've become a lot stronger recently, and there are fewer fine lines on my face? A lot stronger. Father Wang was blank. Pregnancy could also have an awakening effect. Father Wang thought this was a little strange, but very quickly he reacted. It can't be. Father Wang mumbled silently. No way, what? Mother Wang asked. Honey, wait for me. Father Wang immediately ran back to the study on the second floor, took down a device that looked like a blood pressure machine, and then put a bandage on Mother Wang's head. This is Realm Tester. This device can measure realms below the nascent soul stage, said Father Wang. As a Muggle couple who had been stuck at the body refinement stage all year round, Father Wang had in fact thought about when he would enter the cultivation path, so he looked forward to his awakening every day. There was one thing that needed to be emphasized here. Father Wang hoped that he could awaken himself, instead of relying on Wang Ling's strength. Soon the results of the realm tester came out. Father Wang stared at the results on the dashboard and sucked in a cold breath. What on earth is going on? Mother Wang was baffled. Mom, you've reached the foundation establishment stage. Father Wang was completely stupefied. I've reached the foundation establishment stage? Mother Wang also turned pale with fright. Their spirit roots were so useless, yet they could still reach the foundation establishment stage. No wonder I said that my body is getting better and better recently. Mother Wang rubbed her belly and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But it wasn't like this when I was pregnant with Ling Ling. Daughters and sons are different. My son is the China Construction Bank, and my daughter is the China Merchants Bank. That's how the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered for you and helped you build your foundation. Father Wang stared at the dashboard enviously. After a while, he looked at Mother Wang very seriously. Tell me, can I also get pregnant? Mother Wang. In space near the moon, Wang Ling and Grey Mist Lord faced each other. To be honest, Grey Mist Lord's body was smaller than Wang Ling had imagined, but its physical density was indeed astonishing. Its small body possessed immense weight, and it was obvious that it was no longer 5 tons. It had been a very long time since Father Wang had fed it. Even though the groundhog said that it hated the feeling of being treated as a pet, its body had already been transformed into a complete glutton after being fed all sorts of delicacies by Father Wang. In the past few years, other than causing trouble in various places, what groundhogs do most is eat, eat, eat. As a result, their current weight was astonishing. Just like you, who had been fattening up at home during the epidemic. Your eyes are very interesting. They can actually see through my chaotic gray fog. At that moment, Gray Mist Lord stared at Wang Ling as he admired Wang Ling's king's eyes. Red eyes. When dusk power circulated, the entire pupil would be dyed gold and turn into lotus petals that spread out. Wang Ling had only unlocked less than 5% of his dusk power, but Gray Mist Lord already felt a strange sense of oppression. After all, even Monk Golden Lamp's dusk power. Gray Mist Lord wasn't weak at all. Apart from Father Wang, there really weren't many people who could put pressure on him through their gazes. I can very clearly sense that you're definitely not the reincarnation of His Excellency Dao Ancestor. Who on earth are you? The groundhog stared at Wang Ling, curious about Wang Ling's identity. Wang Ling's ears had already become calluses from hearing these lines. Why was it that before everyone fought him, they had to ask him who he was, where he came from, and who he was? He didn't even know who he was. Forget it. It was better to finish this fight as soon as possible. Wang Ling guessed that the green Tong cat in the forsaken land of the gods was probably also watching this fight. The green Tong cat had long since grown impatient with teaching the groundhog a lesson. Thus, he had to complete his agreement with the green Tong cat as soon as possible. This way Lotus Sun would have another layer of protection. There was a muffled sound. Wang Ling disappeared into thin air and space, shrinking ground to inches. Gray Mist Lord reacted quickly, and immediately increased the density of the chaotic gray fog to surround himself. The chaotic gray fog Taoist robe formed by the chaotic gray fog was a natural damage-reducing weapon. As long as the chaotic gray fog existed, in his heart, he was confident in the outcome of the battle. As long as he could use this ability flexibly, Gray Mist Lord was confident that he could even fight unscathed the entire time. This was Wang Ling's unadorned palm strike. There was nothing fancy about it, and it was just a simple knife hand strike. You want to hurt me with such an ordinary attack? Gray Mist Lord sneered in his heart. He hid in the chaotic gray fog and closed his eyes. He didn't care at all which direction Wang Ling would attack from, and was confident that he wouldn't be hurt. But in the next moment, there was a scream. It was a standard marmot squeal. Ah! Wang Ling's knife hand pierced through the chaotic gray fog with unerring accuracy, and landed precisely on Gray Mist Lord's spine. In the blink of an eye, the groundhog looked like a meteor falling from the sky as it smashed into the surface of the moon, leaving behind a deep crater. It can actually pierce through the chaotic gray fog. The groundhog spat out a mouthful of blood and crawled out of the crater. It hadn't died in one blow again. Wang Ling raised his eyebrows. But this was also within Wang Ling's expectations. After all, this was a divine beast that Dao ancestor Wang had reared in captivity. If Wang Ling killed it in one blow, how humiliating would Dao ancestor Wang be? And most importantly, the groundhog thought that it had been injured because Wang Ling's knife hand had pierced through its chaotic gray fog. But the truth was that Wang Ling hadn't pierced through it. The chaotic gray fog around the Gray Mist Lord did indeed have the effect of reducing damage. And there was no fancy reason why it had been injured now. It was purely because of Wang Ling's knife hand strike. The damage was really too high. I'm going to get serious, human. At that moment, the Gray Mist Lord, who had crawled out of the crater, wiped the blood from the corner of its mouth. It increased the density of the chaotic gray fog once again. At the same time, it stretched out its claws at Wang Ling, which it claimed could cut through everything. Boom! The groundhog stomped hard on the ground and abruptly shot off the surface of the moon. In the end, 3 seconds later, there was yet another standard groundhog scream. Aha! Next to the pit that had just been formed, there was a second pit. Not dead yet. At that moment, Wang Ling stared at the 2 deep craters on the surface of the moon, his palms smoking. This was a groundhog. It wasn't strong. The blood was really thick. Chapter 13-14. It could only be said that Grey Mist Lord's primal chaos fog was indeed very fierce. Objectively speaking, while Wang Ling's knife hand strike could cause explosive damage, as long as there was this primal chaos fog, Grey Mist Lord could reduce the damage by 75% at most. This was also the main reason why Grey Mist Lord was still able to stand up after being hit by Wang Ling twice in a row. He was injured but not seriously injured, and this injury was far from fatal. What surprised Wang Ling even more was that, in addition to reducing damage, this primal chaos fog also had the ability to heal itself, which ignored the serious injury effect. The last person who had been so confident in his self-healing ability was President Bai. Unfortunately, President Bai hadn't taken into account the serious injury effect attached to each of Wang Ling's ordinary attacks. As a result, he hadn't been able to recover from his injuries before he died. And now, the marmot had fully demonstrated the professionalism that a qualified meat shield should have. It wasn't even afraid of being seriously injured. Even if it was severely injured, as long as there was the primal chaos fog, it could come back to life. It was indeed a troublesome guy. In space, Wang Ling stared at Grey Mist Lord as he climbed out of the second pit, and pondered what to do. If he wanted to kill this marmot, he had to think of a way to get rid of this primal chaos fog. But looking at the current situation, Wang Ling hadn't thought of a suitable way, because it was as if this primal chaos fog had already become one with the marmot. It had become an inseparable existence. Because it has been hiding in the fog for so long, does it think of itself as an organ of the marmot? Wang Ling guessed. Elsewhere, Grey Mist Lord was very depressed after climbing out of the second pit. The second slap in the face had come too suddenly. He even wondered if he had gotten the wrong script. As the #1 divine beast under Dao ancestor Wang, he had never been beaten up so unilaterally. Not even that monk golden lamp had been able to take such a beating. Rumble. There was a violent tremor on the surface of the moon. Grey Mist Lord sprang to his feet again, and aimed his sharp claws in Wang Ling's direction. Again? Wang Ling didn't believe that the marmot would play the same trick again. At this distance, no matter how fast the marmot was, Wang Ling would be able to swat it back like a fly. A third crater was about to appear on the surface of the moon. When the Grey Mist Lord flew into the air, his sharp claws tore open a space, and his body turned into light particles, quickly disappearing into the void. Did it disappear halfway through? No. Wang Ling realized that this groundhog really wanted to burrow into his spiritual space. This was truly an omnipotent claw. It could even tear through the barrier leading to the spiritual space. This could be considered a miscalculation. He didn't expect groundhogs to have this ability. This caused him to be careless for a moment. But what could he do even if he was in his spiritual space? In Wang Ling's opinion, this marmot was just courting death. A normal cultivator's mental space is very narrow. The range of an almighty's spiritual space naturally went without saying. Take the monk for example. The spiritual world of the monk was about the size of a solar system. But Wang Ling's spiritual space, after the Grey Mist Lord entered, he felt completely dumbfounded. This was because he realized that he had just left a real universe and entered another spiritual universe. F***CK. This was the freaking spiritual space of a human being. Are you ready to die? A cold voice rang out in the universe of Wang Ling's spiritual space. The voice seemed to be the very essence of this universe. Layer upon layer, it had a terrifying echo, like a prehistoric death knell. It surged in from all directions. A familiar white-haired figure appeared, formed from countless specks of light. As always, he appeared like a deity descending to the mortal world. Wang Ying's figure appeared in front of the Grey Mist Lord, his eyes overbearing and insufferably arrogant. "You're this person's shadow?" the Grey Mist Lord said gloomily. He sensed it. This person's aura was the same as that of the huge shadow that had risen up on the dark side of the moon earlier. It came from the same great Tao. The marmot was astonished. Although they had only met face to face for a moment, he could sense that the shadow in front of him was extremely strong. His figure was a mixture of reality and illusion, as if he had melded into this spiritual world constructed from the sea of stars, and was indistinct and invisible. His cold, obsidian eyes were sharp, and even without the support of the king's eye, they were still extremely intimidating. Gray light flickered on the marmot's body as he increased the protection of the chaotic gray mist once again. Now the chaotic gray mist had already reduced the damage by 50%, and it had completely enveloped him. The marmot never thought that he would one day be able to increase the chaotic gray mist to 50%. Because there was only so much chaotic power in his body. 50% of the chaotic gray mist meant that the vast majority of the chaotic power in his body had been allocated to this chaotic gray mist. The damage reduction effect had increased, but at the same time, because of the distribution of the chaotic power in his body, the damage dealt would also be weakened. So you're relying on this gray robe to do whatever you want. Wang Ying's gaze became colder and colder. Under this threatening gaze, the gray mist lord finally couldn't take it anymore. Don't be too arrogant. When the Tao ancestor gave birth to me, you weren't even deoxyribonuclease. The marmot moved. Enhanced by the gray mist, he stretched out his sharp claws and clawed at Wang Ying. The air in front of him distorted, and an invisible wave of chaos spread out to imprison Wang Ying. At the same time, the gray mist around his body transformed into a pair of wings, turning him into a flying groundhog. With a flap of his divine wings, the ground shrank to inches. Countless stars were swept into the storm, and then torn to pieces by the strong winds. The marmot flapped his wings and stretched out his claws as he tried to tear Wang Ying's body apart. Wang Ying couldn't be bothered to dodge at all. When the claws hit his brain, they directly passed through his body. They didn't cause him any damage. What a stupid marmot. How could it attack Shadow so heavily? Wang Ying's eyes were cold. He had already seen through everything. This chaotic gray mist was indeed the key. Furthermore, this chaotic gray mist was actually a little similar to him. It was also something that was intangible and didn't have a physical body. Then, as long as he could destroy this chaotic gray mist, this marmot would be very easy to deal with. You actually chose to come to Wang Ling's mental space. You really have a death wish. At that moment, Wang Ying had already thought of a way to deal with the chaotic gray mist. He stared at the terrified marmot in front of him with a kind expression. Chapter 13:15. The next moment, there was a tremendous fluctuation in Wang Ling's spiritual space. Wang Ying's body disintegrated into a black hole, which swallowed the marmot. This was Shadow Howl. It was even larger than the one which Wang Ying had used to deal with the hollow spirit that had broken in. Boundless darkness directly surrounded him from every corner of the spiritual space. Gray Mist Lord quickly flapped his wings to retreat. He could sense the terrifying energy in the space around him. In that instant, all his hair stood on end, and he flapped his wings made of chaotic gray mist to flee into the distance. At the moment when he fled, a terrifying shadow rope attacked from a crafty angle and struck his afterimage, causing a terrifying energy fluctuation to erupt. Since you're here, there's no way I'll let you escape. Wang Ying's expression was calm, as if he was talking about something very ordinary. He manipulated countless shadows to chase after him. The moment these shadows lunged at him, they transformed into all kinds of shadow beasts. Those shadow lions, shadow dragons, and shadow? They covered the sky and covered the earth as they charged forward, trampling over the space and causing it to collapse. Gray Mist Lord had never thought that one day he would actually become a street rat that would be beaten everywhere he went. He threw his head back and howled, "Ah!" With this authentic marmot roar, he knew that he couldn't control the situation in front of him. He could only fight. As the #1 divine beast under the Tao ancestor, he didn't want to be in such a sorry state and let a shadow act so arrogantly in front of him. The marmot's heart was filled with hope. In the next moment, his entire body glowed brightly as he raised the density of the gray mist to 75%. With his most powerful damage-reducing shield, he charged recklessly at Wang Ying. "Die here." Wang Ying stretched out his hand and manipulated the Shadow Howl giant wave to swallow up Gray Mist Lord. In the end, he suddenly clenched his hand. All the shadows were instantly wrapped up and compressed until they formed a shadow ball the size of a basketball. Gray Mist Lord was trapped in the shadow ball and was being attacked by the shadows. Every second he stayed in the shadow ball was equivalent to being injured by one of Wang Ling's palms. In a normal situation, The moment he was wrapped up, he should have already lost all signs of life. After all, there were very few people in the world who could withstand one of Wang Ling's palms. However, what surprised Wang Ying was that the groundhog was still alive. The chaos gray mist is so powerful. Wang Ying was slightly surprised. 3 seconds later, a corner of his shadow sphere protruded. In a situation visible to the naked eye, this corner was getting taller and taller. Chi. Another second passed. The groundhog successfully broke free from the shadow ball's restriction, its face swollen and bruised. His entire body was covered in blood, and it was obvious that his injuries were not light. However, this time, he still survived, Wang Ying exclaimed in her heart. The chaos fog that reduced 75% damage was indeed terrifying. To think that the groundhog was able to escape from the shadow ball formed by the shadow howl, although he was beaten black and blue all over. But to be able to come out alive was already very impressive. You've trapped me here. How dare you? Go out and fight if you dare. Grey Mist King roared. Wang Ying rubbed her ears. It was clearly the marmot that had come in on its own. But in the end, it had pushed the blame onto him and Wang Ling. You're just trying your best. It's useless even if you get out. Wang Ying shook her head. It was true that the groundhog wasn't dead. But Wang Ying had already achieved his goal. In order to escape from the shadow ball, the groundhog had used up most of its power of chaos, which had greatly weakened the defense of the chaos gray mist. There was no more 75% damage reduction. Even if the groundhog went all out, it could only reduce the damage by 20%. Whether it was Wang Ying or Wang Ling, if they were just a little more serious, the groundhog would instantly be reduced to ashes. In the next moment, Wang Ying raised his hand. He was ready to give the groundhog the final blow. Just you wait. Grey Mist King bellowed. He was afraid that Wang Ying would use the shadow howl again. So, it used its sharp claws to dig a tunnel and escape from Wang Ling's mental space once more. You're leaving just like that? Wang Ying laughed inwardly. Why didn't you kill it? Asked Wang Ling. He knew that Wang Ying had always been a decisive person. Thus, the two of them had a simple exchange. It's just a stupid groundhog. I thought it might be useful to keep it. But I already promised Qingtong Cat. Don't worry, it won't die so easily. I see. Wang Ling was enlightened. In the real universe, the groundhog successfully escaped. It had wanted to avoid a direct collision with Wang Ling, and instead sneak into his mental space to directly destroy it. Who knew that it would ruin a moment of solitude? There was a great Buddha waiting for it in this mental space. Such a pathetic scene made Grey Mist King feel a deep sense of helplessness. He had no choice but to retreat. But what the groundhog didn't expect was waiting for him. This was Wang Ling's serious palm strike, which he had been waiting for a long time. Finally willing to come out? Wang Ling's voice was cold. Hearing this devilish voice, the groundhog shivered all over. Boom. Wang Ling raised his hand and his palm landed on the groundhog's back. An unprecedentedly powerful fluctuation was generated. There were no unnecessary movements. He struck out with his palm. The sky was filled with heavenly Tao runes. Space shattered layer by layer, carrying the destructive power of the Golden Man. The groundhog was directly struck from the front of the moon to the shadow of the dark side. Hua! Grey Mist King spat out a mouthful of blood and screamed in pain. His face was contorted. Everything was as Wang Ying had said. After being surrounded by the shadow ball, the chaotic gray fog on its body was already extremely weak. It could no longer withstand the surging power of such a palm strike. Wang Ling's palm. It pierced the groundhog's body from the front to the dark side of the moon. Under this astonishing destructive power, its entire body had already been shattered into pieces. Finally, there was a bang. Grey Mist King's body disintegrated and exploded into pieces on the spot. It's finally dead. Including the damage in the mental space, the groundhog had taken a total of 7 palm strikes. In Wang Ling's opinion, this was already an excellent result. But Wang Ling didn't leave, because Wang Ying's words had reminded him just now. The groundhog was the #1 divine beast under Tao ancestor Wang. Furthermore, since its strength surpassed that of a Tao god, it definitely had certain privileges. Sure enough, everything was as he had expected. Wang Ling saw that gray mist king, who he had smashed to death on the dark side of the moon. Its body was actually gathering bit by bit at a speed visible to the naked eye. The groundhog also had the privilege of being resurrected in the forsaken land of the gods. Furthermore, this resurrection probably came at no cost, and didn't need the Qingtong cat's permission. From this point of view, it was easy to imagine how much Dao ancestor Wang doted on the groundhog. The Qingtong cat hated this groundhog to the bone. No matter how much cultivation the groundhog sacrificed, it wouldn't let it go. But Wang Ling judged there was a limit to the number of times this kind of resurrection could be done without any cost. There was no way it could be resurrected infinitely. Ha! You didn't expect me to be back, did you? On the dark side of the moon, the resurrected groundhog was exceptionally arrogant. It had been resurrected at full strength, and even the chaotic gray mist on its body had been restored to its original state. It stared at Wang Ling, stretched out its sharp claws, and roared at the sky. You peeping dog, it won't be that easy to kill me. As soon as it said that, the shadow on the dark side of the moon violently rebelled again. The terrifying shadow gathered into a whirlpool that spiraled under the groundhog's feet. Like a bottomless black hole, that terrible power swallowed the groundhog's body along its feet. Wang Ling looked in the direction of Earth, his heart stirred. He already understood what she meant. Wang wanted to play along with him. Let's have a mixed doubles match between brother and sister. Chapter 13-16. Wang Ling didn't know why a perfectly good groundhog had to court death. And to his surprise, he discovered that his unborn sister seemed to have an older brother complex attribute. After all, Wang only went berserk after hearing what the groundhog said. At that moment, Wang Ling felt exceptionally melancholic. First, the younger brother controlled Wang Xiao'er, then the older brother controlled Wang Anwan. The Wang family's DNA was really amazing. To be able to cause a shadow riot on the far side of the moon from such a long distance, only the creator of Shadow Dao could do it so skillfully. Although he had learned Shadow Dao, it was true that he wasn't as proficient as his little sister. After all, this was something Anwan had learned since she was in her mother's womb, and there were many new functions that hadn't been released yet. Wang Ling had only learned the gist of it, and was far from grasping its essence. Learning the Great Dao and completely mastering the Great Dao were two different things. His sister was very strong. Wang Ling was delighted at this. When Wang Nuan grew up, he might not lack opponents for practice. The groundhog was still struggling with all its might. He was completely restrained by Shadow Dao and tied to the dark side of the moon, unable to move. You siblings are really... Before it could even utter the word shameless, the groundhog's mouth was sealed by a shadow again. Anwan good control. Wang Ling gave Wang Nuan a high evaluation. Even though his sister wasn't born yet, it was obvious that she was a natural fighter. At that moment, Wang Ling sensed the tacit understanding between brother and sister. Anwan was the controller. He was a damage dealer. It was simply too convenient to work together. Now that this groundhog had come back to life, Wang Ling knew that he definitely wouldn't be able to kill it with an ordinary palm strike. Moreover, the gray fog on his body had also recovered to its peak. As such, he had to strike it repeatedly in order to kill it. Therefore, after considering all the circumstances, he started to build up his strength. Since the marmot was already under Wang Nuan's control, Wang Ling had a lot of time. Buzz. Roughly 10 seconds later, a red light gushed out of his palm and covered his entire palm. God-destroying strike. To ensure that he could eliminate this groundhog, he used this palm technique for the first time. This was a palm strike condensed from the 3,000 Great Daos. When Wang Ling condensed it, the surrounding space shattered, and countless lightning bolts of divine punishment appeared in the surroundings, exploding wildly. Crap! In that instant, the groundhog's scalp began to crawl. This palm was extremely powerful. Even if he had the protection of the primal chaos fog, he might not be able to withstand it. He had to think of a way to break free. At this moment, the groundhog was racking its brains to think of a way to break free from the shadow seal. However, at this moment, he heard a faint sobbing sound coming from space. As he gathered strength, he searched for the source of the cry. He began to think it was the groundhog crying. It turned out that it wasn't. In the end, he found out that the owner of the voice was the spirit of the moon. The moon spirit wept in agony and was extremely scared. Lingzhenren, I already have a lot of holes on the surface. I even got a puncture wound just now. With your palm, this marmot will be gone, but I'll also be gone. Hearing this, Wang Ling was slightly startled. This was a mistake on his part. He had forgotten about the spirit of the planet. Thus, Wang Ling raised his left hand again, and casually pointed in the direction of the moon. With a hum, the entire moon lit up and abruptly turned into a massive red moon. Spirit of the moon. Lingzhenren, what is this? This was the permanent enchantment spell. Wang Ling had used this move to strengthen the moon and turn it into a super moon. Considering that he might have to drag some troublesome enemies out of Earth to fight later, Wang Ling felt that the surface of the moon seemed pretty suitable. So he used the permanent enchantment spell on the moon. It made the surface of the moon so that it wouldn't be easily destroyed by the strength of his palm. Of course, bad, it might still be broken. But since it had already been enchanted, he could just repair it when he cleaned up the battlefield later. Although it had already been strengthened by Wang Ling. But as the spirit of the moon stared at Wang Ling, it still felt a little apprehensive. Boom. Wang Ling's god-destroying strike was aimed precisely at the back of the moon. Before the groundhog could cry out in alarm, the spirit of the moon had already cried out in alarm. Grey Mist Lord was furious. Why the hell are you shouting so loudly? Spirit of the moon. If you hit me, even if I don't break, it will still hurt. The enormous palm print covered an area of tens of thousands of hectares. Even the lines on the palm were instantly magnified infinitely, and that overwhelming destructive force smashed into the back of the moon. The groundhog was smashed to pieces once again. Under Wang Nuan's powerful control, it couldn't break free at all. At the same time, in the Golden Buddha Lotus, through Battlesex satellite, the girl saw this unparalleled battle near the moon. Classmate Wang Ling is really awesome. Lotus Sun was astonished. Although she couldn't experience the atmosphere at the scene, based on the image alone, it was clear that the groundhog wasn't an easy enemy to deal with. I heard that this groundhog is a divine beast, and is stronger than any cultivator on Earth except Shifu, said Ajwa. What about Senior Golden Lamp? Asked Lotus Sunday. I heard it was a draw. Ajwa smiled. But once Shifu's younger sister is born, I'm afraid there will be one more person on Earth that this groundhog can't beat. I heard it before, classmate Wang Ling's younger sister. Lotus Sun said with a smile. I also have a younger sister. But actually, she's not related by blood. She's the only one who doesn't know. I've been wondering if I should tell her the truth. Whether they're related by blood or not, as long as their relationship is good enough, they're still good sisters. Junior Lotus Sun is so smart, I'm sure you'll find a good way to handle this, said Ajwa when he heard this. I will. Lotus Sun nodded, and then suddenly asked, that's right, Senior Zhua. What do you think Sister Wang Nuan will like? Ajwa pondered for a bit, then quickly raised his head. Frozen dumplings? Frozen dumplings. Lotus Sun was very surprised by this answer. Are you sure it's not frozen dumplings with crispy noodle filling? I'm sure it's just ordinary frozen dumplings. Ajwa couldn't help laughing. Junior Lotus Sun should know better than I do what girls like. No. Lotus Sun shook her head firmly. Old Wang's DNA is too amazing, I really can't figure it out. Ajwa. At that moment, Ajwa snickered in his heart. As the saying went, why would you want a bicycle? He thought, junior sister Lotus Sun could send him over. Chapter 13-17. The groundhog was once again sent to the afterlife. Wang Ling stared at the huge palm print on the moon's surface, a little embarrassed. Even though the moon had already been strengthened by him, the destructive power of the God Destroyer strike was immense, and the surface of the moon was still severely damaged. The groundhog was dead. Moon Spirit himself had also been slapped by Wang Ling, and he felt very aggrieved. Woo! Lingzhenren, can you fix me? Wang Ling nodded affirmatively. The surface of the moon was originally full of potholes, and after the destruction of the war, it looked even more uneven and tragic. There was no other way. He raised his hand and prepared to use a heavenly Tao spell to repair the moon's surface. But the moon spirit had an ominous premonition. Wait. Lingzhenren. The Heaven's Path Divine Art you used. What kind of Heaven's Path Divine Art is it? Which one? Of course, it was Grand Repair combined with the legendary Grand Skin Abrasion. First, he used Greater Repair to maintain the whole thing, and then he used Abrasion to remove the bumps and hollows on the surface of the moon. However, the principle of the Great Dermabrasion technique was a bit like peeling an apple. It would keep peeling until the surface of the moon became smooth. After hearing this, Moon Spirit's entire body turned sour. Don't. Lingzhenren, just fill in the deep hole on the surface. I don't think you need to grind the skin. You really don't need it? Wang Ling confirmed. No need. The Moon Spirit said resolutely. A faint look of disappointment appeared on Wang Ling's face. He was surprised to find out. The big sister moon mentioned in my childhood stories were all lies. This Moon Spirit was a proper straight man. Only a straight man would not care about his pockmarked face. Then his fingertips lit up with light. The light of Grand Repair illuminated the moon, restoring the handprints and pits that were caused in the battle earlier. It feels so good. What kind of spell was this? Shrouded in the light of the Great Repair spell, the Moon Spirit let out a strange cry. Halfway through the repairs, Wang Ling's expression suddenly changed. He didn't think he could be wrong. This was indeed the aura of that groundhog. I can actually be resurrected without paying a price? Wang Ling felt that this was incredible. However, the groundhog seemed to have taken a little longer on this occasion. Moreover, the resurrection location was not the same as the place where he had died. It was coming from Earth. Wang Ling quickly shifted his gaze. This groundhog actually went to Earth? But wasn't there a restriction left behind by the Tao ancestor on Earth? Wang Ling was puzzled. He didn't know what the groundhog was trying to do. However, this actually made things difficult for him. This was because he couldn't do what he did to the Moon Spirit and directly touch the Earth. Most importantly, if he wanted to kill the groundhog, he had to increase his damage to the same level as the God-slaying strike. It was fine for him to take a picture of the moon, but if he were to take a picture of the Earth, he was afraid that a group of innocent cultivators would suffer. He had to think of a way to move this troublesome groundhog somewhere else. There was no time to think. Wang Ling's figure flashed, and he disappeared in front of Moon Spirit. The Moon Spirit felt wronged. He wasn't done yet. This damned groundhog. Don't let me get my revenge. The Moon Spirit murmured angrily. The feeling of being interrupted in the midst of pleasure was something that only the person involved could understand. At that moment, the Grey Mist Lord appeared on Earth in full condition. He really had no other choice. He didn't want to be controlled as soon as he was resurrected, and then be beaten up and sent directly to the forsaken land of the gods. The Tao ancestor had indeed left him with the right to resurrect in full condition wasn't unlimited. Furthermore, he didn't have many chances left. The restriction left behind by the Tao ancestor on Earth would limit most of his strength. But it was precisely because of this restriction that the heavenly Tao wouldn't be able to track his location as long as he was on Earth. This restriction was a double-edged sword. At the same time that he appeared on Earth, he was able to produce a resonance response similar to a heavenly way signal blocker. Therefore, even though hiding on Earth would limit his strength, however, Earth was also a good place to hide. In short, that scary Earth youngster. He definitely wouldn't be able to beat him if he fought him in a normal way. The damage was too high. Even his chaotic Grey Mist wouldn't be able to withstand it. Thus, the extremely quick-witted Grey Mist Lord came up with a plan. He couldn't kill Wang Ling. But if he could find Wang Ling's weakness, for example, he could take something important from him and threaten him. Then he could make this peeping dog commit suicide in front of him. Then he could still win. This method might be a little sinister and ruthless. But as the saying goes, all's fair in war. As for his target, the Grey Mist Lord had already thought of it. When they had been fighting in space earlier, the Grey Mist Lord had actually noticed all along that a secret satellite from Earth had been remotely observing the contest between him and Wang Ling. He didn't need to think to know that the girl watching them through the satellite had to be a very important person. At that time, the Grey Mist Lord had already sent out his spiritual senses. And now he was already in battle sect. Because he was moving so fast, almost no one had noticed him. The groundhog swiftly locked onto Lotus Sun's position. Hee, she's actually underground? After confirming the location, he was delighted. This was his home ground. In the underground cellar of Battle Sect, the girl was seriously considering the matter of bribery. She had her own experience in bribing her sister. When she was young, she had tried to get close to Sun Yu. She had given her sister a lot of gifts. However, the things that girls like are usually different. In general, in a family, whether it was brother or sister or brother, they all had something in common when it came to what they liked. It's rare for junior sister Lotus Sun to show such a sad expression. Ajwa couldn't help laughing in his heart when he saw that the girl was thinking very hard about what gift to give her. First impressions are very important, Lotus Sun said seriously. But there's no hurry. After I'm resurrected, I'll have a lot of time to go on a field trip. As for the rules of improving favorability, apart from Wang Ling, whom she had failed repeatedly, she was very confident in other people. As long as she did a little research, she would be able to find out what little sister Wang Nuan liked. Don't you have any doubts that Shifu really can't save you? Ajwa asked curiously. No. The girl smiled slightly and answered without hesitation. From the moment she had clearly sensed Wang Ling's true strength, Lotus Sun already understood in her heart. Perhaps there really was nothing in this world that classmate Wang Ling couldn't achieve. Perhaps the only person who could save her was classmate Wang Ling. But right at that moment, Ajwa suddenly sensed something unusual above his head. Senior Death Heavenly Dao, there seems to be something wrong. Is there? Because of the Heavenly Dao signal blocker. Death Heavenly Dao couldn't predict the arrival of danger. It was just the blink of an eye. A sharp claw had already pierced through the ceiling. Then that figure swiftly jumped out of the hole, picked up the Buddha Golden Lotus and ran. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.